Hello again, friends, and you are our friends, and welcome back to another edition of Jim Cornette's Drive Thru right here, wherever you are on this beautiful summer day, potentially summer evening. I'm the great Brian Last, your host, and of course, the star of the Drive Thru, the man who'll be answering your questions, Mr. Jim Cornette.
What about summer nights, Brian? Ooh, those summer nights. Ooh. See, like it could be summer nights. It's a time that people, I know I stayed up late the past couple of nights. We'll get to that in a second. But
did a teenage Jim Cornette see Grease in the theater?
No, I did. Well, in the movie theater, yes. I thought you meant like live theater
on Broadway. No, I mean in the movie theater.
Not on Broadway. No, I didn't go. No, I got greased in the Showcase cinemas in the parking lot afterwards, as well as you saw the movie. You saw the movie that your date wanted to see back in them there times, and then you lingered in the parking lot, usually on a weekend. Huge part. Showcase cinemas. Anybody in Louisville, Kentucky that's about 50-something years old knows that the Showcase cinemas parking lot was one of the hugest parking lots in the history of the parking lot industry. And on weeknights, they wouldn't fill those theaters up. And you could just have your heart's content of picking a parking space. Anyway, I was going to mention that you hesitated at the start of that intro and almost didn't include, and you are our friends. And I do think that's the most important part of the salutation. If you were ever to leave that out from henceforth, I would have to stop you and remind you to put it back in. But thankfully, you got that one.
Thankfully, because they are our friends.
They are our friends, yes. And I'm a friend to our listeners, and I'm a friend to furry woodland creatures, and I have the wildlife update. I know we need to get some of that breaking newsroom music, but I predicted it, Brian. The fireworks assholes were out in force on the 4th of July weekend. I have no problem with people going to see professional fireworks displays, major events, things that are supervised so that little Jethro doesn't blow half his fucking face off. But I hate it, as I've mentioned, when these amateur nitwits get out in the subdivisions or whatever, or maybe over in the church parking lot and in open spaces and fire off these fucking mortar shells. I thought it was going to be the deer that had the biggest problem with it. I found out it wasn't. It was Harley, because they're closer than ever now. We've got developments encroaching on the airspace here. And this is the loudest 4th of July that I can remember, and I've experienced quite a few of them here in this airspace. And they started before dark. I looked out the side window, the bedroom window there, on the west wing of the castle, and there was 2 of the baby deers just flopped out, hanging in the grass about 15 feet from the house. While the first rounds are going off, you can hear them, but it's not dark yet. And because they've figured out if they just clumped up in between me and the woman's house next door to me, that's in the middle of these 4 safe properties, and they can just wonder, what the fuck are those humans doing outside this general area? But Harley, every time a certain decibel would go off, or the big loud one, I don't know what they were doing, where they were doing it, or how close it was, but it sounded like mortar fire going off at a couple of instances. And she'd start barking and be all defensive and like, I'm going to do something about this. So from just about dusk until going on midnight, I haven't been awake at midnight in months now. Going on midnight, these people are still firing this shit off. And finally, and then she would settle down. The night of the actual the 5th, we had to give her a half of a Dramamine to calm her little nerves. But anyway, so I predicted it. They were out making noise. I don't know how many fingers we lost, but I certainly gave a few. I don't know whether they were picked up on, but the heartwarming end, Brian, to the wildlife update. This morning, the sun comes up. It's about 6:30, 6:45, whatever it is. And, you know, it's almost like the cartoon song. Do, 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 do. The daylight's peeping through the curtains. And I draw them back and look out the bedroom window, and there is the entire dear family hanging out underneath the old ash tree where I've got the new stonework done. 4 babies and 2 mamas just grazing away, minding their own business. And then suddenly, I guess the babies got, and now we've mentioned they're 6 weeks old now. So they're getting up there, but they're still nursing. I know this because while one poor mama was minding her own business, 3 of them grouped around her and decided they all wanted to drink at the same time and latched onto her and were going to town. And she's like, hey, what, hey? And the other mama's over with the other one minding her own business, has nobody at her service area. So the one that's got 3 on, finally she starts backing up like toward the fence, and fuck. And finally she broke loose from them and hopped over the fence to get away because they still can't jump the fence yet. Like, goddamn, what do you think this is? Waffle House? You can just come in and get served whenever you want? But anyway, so they weathered the storm on the fireworks people, and everybody's now safe and back to normal. How was your 4th of July?
Not too bad. It's always a little weird when it's on a Sunday and then Monday's the 5th and everything, well, not everything, but a lot of things are closed, so you really can't function. Post office, bank, stock market.
I should have known you can't function if the stock market's not open.
Well, I could function, it's just I can't buy stocks or sell stocks. That's the only thing.
Well, I guess it is the buying and selling of the stocks that's the most important thing, isn't it?
Yes, the value is safe right now. Hasn't moved in a couple days.
Well, good. Well, we close down for a couple days and just make sure everything's okay. Go in and change all the light bulbs, mop the floor, whatever. This is your show, but I got to mention, we've been announcing this, and it is now this coming weekend, the Great American Cameo Bash, Sunday, July 11th, noon Eastern, and we're doing it a different way this time because people have been complaining they have to rush to get the information typed in. I've been complaining that I'm not getting enough information to go on because of the quickness of the time that they sell out in. And this time we're leaving them up for 2 hours, noon to 2 p.m. Eastern on Sunday, July 11th at cameo.com/Jim Cornette. Tell me who you'd like me to slash verbally. And,
you're talking to the listeners. Okay.
Yeah, I'm talking to the listeners now. Thank you. I do that sometimes for you in person or personally in private rather than in a public display here. But anyway, tell me who needs a talking to, and you got 2 hours to do it. And I've already cleared Hotchkiss's time. I've already spoken to his parole officer. He can get that bracelet off to come over both days, 3 days, whatever it takes. So anyway, cameos, July 11th, Sunday, noon to 2 p.m. Eastern. They will be on sale for 2 hours. And then we will shoot those that following week.
All right. Slashing and shooting. Lots of things happening. A violent episode so far.
Yes.
And we have lots of things to talk about.
It's your show, and I'd like to, well, except for let me just make mention of one thing here real quick, because.
Well, one thing, yeah.
Well, no, actually, I'm not even going to read the whole email. It's a heartwarming thing, but Edmund Francis is his first 2 names. That's not his last name.
Oh, come on.
Francis. No, Edmund Francis something. I'm not going to read this
Francis?
whole name.
Gentleman
Francis,
Ed Francis? Really?
No, it's Edmund Francis Langevin III.
Ed Francis and Legs Langevin had an affair? Is that what you're saying?
And then this one's the third. But anyway, no, it's a heartwarming email. His dog Chunky was 14 years old and got cancer and had to be put to sleep. And I'm not going to read it because it'll make me cry. But I just wanted to send out our best wishes. I got that email. But anyway, I just wanted to say that. But otherwise, it's your program.
I have to say, that does break my heart. We do get a lot of people, a lot of people get in touch just to talk about how much the show means to them. And sometimes it's centered around a specific event, a death in the family, a depression, whatever it is. we mean a lot to a lot of different people, but it's always nice when you hear from people who need the show and they tell you. But whenever we get the ones about an animal dying, that affects me every time. Like, oh, man, you feel that.
Yeah, well, you know me. I've just spent 15 minutes talking about the deer and Harley's Dramamine. But it's your show where we were going to talk about the Lex Luger documentary.
Well, didn't work out as exactly how we thought it would, but
what the hell have they just?
It's not airing. It's not airing.
Well, I know that, but what is Lex in the Federal Witness Protection Program? Was there some? I mean, I seriously, I read on the interweb, so it must be true that they pulled it very. What was it, like Friday afternoon, maybe night?
Yeah.
They announced it was right after we said we were going to watch it. They finally found programming we want to watch and publicly state we will watch, and they pull that. But all the shit we don't want to watch. But they pulled it immediately after that Friday, and it was supposed to air Sunday night. And now their reason is they wanted to save it for a better lead-in or something?
That's the rumor. Who knows what the real reason is, but that is a rumor.
Well, but and somebody said it wasn't just this, but all documentaries, henceforth and forthwith.
Maybe again,
they've been doing.
I don't know because I usually don't pay attention to their documentaries when they premiere. I know a lot of their big events on the network and now on Peacock. Like just recently, Steve Austin and Mick Foley sitting down and talking. It premiered after a pay-per-view event, so there may be some reason there to think that they would want to hold the documentary back until after a big event where you have a lot of eyeballs on the network. But again, it was announced all week. You say they announced they pulled it. They didn't announce they pulled it. They just pulled it. Someone noticed it wasn't on the schedule anymore.
Oh, okay.
And they tweeted, hey, it's not on the schedule anymore. And everyone said, oh my God, they pulled it. So we'll see what happens. They have a pay-per-view in 2 weeks, Money in the Bank. I guess we'll have to talk about that in the next week or so. But
I saw some report that said they had either halted production on future documentaries or halted scheduling of any more documentaries or whatever, the ones they've been doing on the quote-unquote network or the cock. Not just the Luger one, because they were going to, I don't know. This is a developing story, apparently.
We'll see what we can find out, but...
Well, put Sharknado on that.
I feel bad for Luger. Everyone's waiting for this documentary. They just pull it. No answers.
You know,
the rib never ends with Vince and Luger.
I was about to say, Vince waited 26 years to get even with that son of a bitch and finally pulled his documentary. That'll show him, pal. But it's your show.
Indeed, it is my show, and we.
Except I want to ask you a question.
Yeah.
This is a special segment that we are springing on you, the host of this program, on the sperm of the moment. And it is called Stump Brian. Because I have a question that I want to ask you.
That was going to be my wrestling name if I ever lost a limb.
Stump
But anyway, you have a question, I understand.
Yeah, I'll tell that one to the one-legged waitress over at the IHOP. But anyway, I have a question I want to ask you, and you might know this in your infinite wrestling knowledge, in your minutia that you have committed to memory, that you have thrown into the medulla oblongata portion of your brain. You might know this, but then again, you might not. And I'll tell you either way how I think you know it or how you might have not known it after I ask you the question. The question is, Brian Last, the great Brian Last, what was the first televised instance of a World Heavyweight Wrestling Championship changing hands?
The first televised world title change.
The first time that a World Heavyweight Wrestling Championship changed hands on television.
Okay. I don't know the answer off the top of my head, so I'm just going to try to give you some of my reasoning as I try to figure it out.
You're going to work this out. It's Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, only I ain't giving you a fucking $1 million, so go ahead.
Okay. I could be wrong, but I'm going to start with 48. 48 is the birth of the NWA. 48 is really when TV starts, the beginning of its infiltration into America, which completely takes hold by the early 50s, mid-50s. So we're going with NWA. We're not going with National Wrestling Association. I don't remember ever hearing about Fez and Hutton. I don't know about Pat O'Connor and Hutton. Rogers and O'Connor is a yes. That's 61. So now we're trying to figure out that something happened between 48 and 61 for a World Heavyweight Championship, which is what you just said. Now,
yes.
Technically,
everything you have just said so far is correct in the way you are grasping this question.
Technically, the AWA World Heavyweight Championship between Don Eagle and Gorgeous George would have been televised. That would have been 49.50.
And that was in Chicago.
That's Chicago. It was a double cross.
And that was pretty much everything they did in Chicagoland in those days was televised.
That's right.
But that ain't it.
That ain't it. So it's before that. I don't know.
Okay.
On television, hold on. Yeah, I'm just trying to think of the semantics of the actual question. On television, world title change. Obviously, no AWA at that point, no WWA at that point, no WWF at that point. You have the AWA, a different AWA, obviously centered out of Boston. You have the National Wrestling Alliance. You still have the National Wrestling Association, technically. I'm trying to think how many regional world champions still existed in the late 40s, early 50s. It was kind of the end of that period of time. Did Fez have a title change air before that? I don't know. Well, actually, 57, Fez and Carpentier is a title change. That aired. I know you can go into the whole story of Carpentier's claim, but that is a title change match. So you could say that one, and that's a world heavyweight title.
But you've just established here just moments ago that Don Eagle and Gorgeous George was technically a world title change and was aired on television. That's why the film of it still exists.
Let me ask you one question, since obviously I haven't gotten it. What city did it come out of?
Well, that actually wouldn't even be telling you, I don't think. But I will go ahead and give you that. If you beg. I want you to beg, Brian Last. I want you to beg me. Tell me if it was St. Louis. Oh, Jim Cornette, I'm dying to know.
I've never begged for anything. I can't start now.
How about just say please?
Will you please tell me?
Okay, St. Louis.
St. Louis. Televised in St. Louis. I give up.
Okay. Folks, on the Experience, which is my show, by the way, on the Experience this past week, we talked about how that our friend Scott Teal at crowbarpress.com has issued a 3-book series of St. Louis wrestling programs that he was able to work together with a young man named, he's not young anymore. None of us are young anymore, but a super fan from Japan named Koji Miyamoto, who actually got these programs left to him in Jim Melby's will, who Jim Melby was an old friend of ours and a great wrestling fan and historian and writer and et cetera in the 50s, 60s, 70s, till when he passed away in 2007, he willed these to Koji, and Koji's now worked with Scott Teal to publish these in book form. They even predate the St. Louis Wrestling Club Sam Muchnick's bound set, the office set that I was able to acquire from Pat O'Connor's wife when he passed away. They go from 1943 through 1951, and it's not complete, but quite a few of them. He's published these in 3 books. Recently, you can go to crowbarpress.com, and we talked about some of the incredible attendance figures and how Wild Bill Longson was the forgotten guy in the 40s. He was the biggest box office attraction in wrestling and still is in the top 5. And that over 58 events that he main evented in a 3-year period in St. Louis, he sold 573,000 live event tickets. So an average of 10,000 people per show every time he appeared. In some cases, with the smaller houses, also came he sold out the Checker Dome, the old arena, a couple, 16, 17,000. Well, I'm into and Brian, you can identify with this. I'm into the segment of the books that now it's a duplicate of what I've had in my office set. And I got those in 1991? Whatever year Pat passed away, Harry White hooked it up for me. And point is, I spent time when I was off. I'd left WCW and was setting Smoky Mountain Wrestling up, but I went through these programs in depth 30 years ago. But you got to remember that there's somewhere around 2,500 to 3,000 pages of these programs in my set. And being as it's a one-of-a-kind, that's why I'm saying you can identify, being as it's a one-of-a-kind, unique collector's item, replicable nowhere or available nowhere else in the world, I don't just fucking haul these things down and flip through them, put bookmarks in them, put Post-it notes in them and shit, right?
I'll give you an example.
Okay,
I have a mint condition set of Florida programs from issue 1 when they redid Championship Wrestling, which I think is, 69?
Oh, my God.
Mint condition run of the first, 40 issues or so. I just got a second set that was pretty busted up, so I had one that I felt okay with flipping through, because the paper of those programs is so weak that I kind of don't want to touch those mint ones until I absolutely have to. So I got a second set.
Newsprint kind of stuff, right?
It's even cheaper. I don't know how to describe it. It almost becomes like flaky, the paper, if it's exposed too much. So, but I bought a second set so I could access the data. Yeah.
Scott doing this has encouraged me to, when I get some time in my old age, to go back and with modern eyes look at all of those programs again. However, I love Scott's work. And by the way, folks, and he's done a bunch of more modern books as well, but crowbarpress.com, we're going to have him on to talk about some of these things coming up. But I don't feel bad about flipping through these and putting the bookmark in at night or falling asleep with it on my chest and bending something, right? Because it's very nice reprints, but they're reprints. But I want to read you this, because this is the kind of thing that has almost been lost to history, lost in plain sight. Because as we do more research in the modern day of the history of wrestling, facts like these become more important and just more cool also. This is from the program Sports Pointers, dated Friday, March 7th, 1947, but it is talking about 1947, but it's talking about the previous event that was at the Kiel Auditorium on Friday, February 21st, 1947. And, wait a minute, was this the Kiel or the fucking auditorium? God damn it, hold on now. And part of it is, even when you've got the originals of these programs, they used really small print.
Yeah.
But the point is, Wild Bill Longson, lost the National Wrestling Association World's Championship to Whipper Billy Watson.
Wow.
Who had a couple of runs with the NWA title, but was the biggest. Well, that's who Bret Hart always compared himself to as a Canadian wrestling hero, with Whipper Watson. He was the guy, and he was drawing the huge houses in Toronto, and he and Longson, I think, drew several houses at Maple Leaf Gardens of over 15,000 people. So since St. Louis and Toronto were so hot, they did a title change that would draw business in both places. But anyway, here's the thing. This is the article from the following show's program. KSD TV cameras record historic moment. Harold Grams presides as Kingpin is dethroned. The first word, as well as the actual picture of Wild Bill Longson in defeat, was carried by KSD-TV, St. Louis's first television station. Harold Grams, familiar to sports fans throughout his daily sportscasts over KSD, was at the microphone to inform the world outside that the monarch of grappling had toppled from his throne. Little groups huddled around television receivers in downtown hotels, offices, stores, and homes saw the historic upset as it happened, when it happened. It was pure coincidence, of course, that radio's dream come true, quote unquote, that's what they call television, was on hand when Longson's reign came to an end. Yet television proved on its very first test with wrestling here that its potentials are unlimited. So this was apparently the very first, and it's buried in, it's a quarter-page article in a program in fine print. That was the first time wrestling was televised in the city of St. Louis, Missouri, when it had already been the hottest live event attraction in St. Louis of any sport or any event for like the previous 10 years. Anyway.
And actually, just a little note here, KSD went on the air in 47. So this is right after the first television station went on the air.
Yes. The article goes, Whipper Billy Watson's victory over Wild Bill Longson was the greatest wrestling news in over 4 years. The fans here who had waited through 87 consecutive matches Longson had were thrown into frenzied excitement when the finish came. Just think what would have happened in Toronto, Watson's hometown, if it had been possible for television to transmit the sight and sound of his victory to there. The time is not too far distant when all of us will have ringside seats at every major sport or a spot news break and sporting event, regardless of where and when it takes place. Television is here. The experiments you are now witnessing in St. Louis tells of the many wonders ahead. Cables are being laid to make possible nationwide television, and with a matter of months, coast-to-coast experiments will be conducted. Within a very few years, network television will be as common, as effective, and excellent as the radio programs you now hear every day. Some experts say television pictures will be presented in lifelike color someday soon. If you're inclined to doubt it, just remember, skeptics once said that the automobile would never replace the horse.
Wow. 47. You see, I didn't think it would be an NWA Alliance title change.
It's a trick question because nobody would think that something like that happened in the 1947 when television mostly was experimental and there were so few receivers. But they had just gone on the air, and they were obviously, because of the attraction that wrestling was in St. Louis, they're thinking, well, we'll try this out. And I'm sure somebody tipped somebody off that, well, we're going to do something big. But what do you think would I don't know how many people, because they said that they were gathering around, television sets in offices and downtown in stores. We've seen the pictures from Japan when they didn't have television 10 years later, when they still mostly didn't have TV, of those giant screens that they would gather by 10,000 in the parks and squares to watch Ricky Dozan. But this was more like an early version of, you've heard those stories in New York City in 1948 when there were just starting to be 1,500 televisions in town, and you'd have people trying to peep at other people's windows or standing out blocking traffic out in front of the appliance store. But the first major world championship in wrestling changes hands on a local experimental TV broadcast in St. Louis, Missouri. That's one of the tidbits you get when you buy these books, folks. I love this shit.
I had a question in my mind, so I went looking for the answer. I don't have it precisely, but my question was, here it is. First TV station in St. Louis, big broadcast. Was Kinescope around yet? And it looks like it actually debuted or was widely available, a form of it, beginning in late 47, so it may have been after this. I'm just thinking, is there any chance any surviving footage of this exists and no one knew where to look for it?
I would almost.
But if there's no Kinescope, what's the chance?
Yeah, and for the young folks who still don't remember when you had to dial a phone, Kinescope was the process of, there was no videotape. In the early days of television, when you broadcast a signal, a show, it was live and you couldn't record the feed. So what you did was you sent it to a monitor, and with a film camera, you recorded the television program, the video and the audio off the monitor, which was called a kinescope. And not only is that why we've got the Lost Honeymooners episodes and a bunch of stuff, not the 39 classic season, 55, 56, but the earlier ones from Gleason's variety show. But you've also got a lot of early television news and sports and things. It's the flickery thing that you see, that was called a kinescope. And that's actually how, before they got what they call it, the transcontinental cable laid, they would send television programs, for the first year or two of TV, and maybe more if it was not network, from the East Coast to the West Coast on a kinescope to show later on, because there was no way to transmit it all the way across.
That is where the surviving footage of the Graham brothers with Bobby Davis and Johnny Valentine's first interview returning to the Northeast, that's where that footage comes from. It's kinescope.
Yeah, so but the question that you asked is, would it still be there and nobody knew where to look? I highly doubt it, because as tied in as Sam Muchnick, Bill Longson, Lou Thez, everybody involved in the St. Louis promotion was with the local TV and stations and radio and etc. And they're always in the programs playing, because they were having radio broadcasts. If you go back and look at those programs, that's how they promoted before television was radio, because they were doing such incredible business that it was worth it to do radio remotes and or wrap-ups of the cards, and they'd talk about it on the sports segments on the radio news, which was the equivalent of TV news, except they didn't have TV yet. Somebody would have had that. Somebody would have seen it. Somebody would have known about it. Somebody would have said something. It would have been shown on some retrospective. So I would have a feeling that it went out to 500 TVs in St. Louis and however many people it could huddle around them as a harbinger of things to come.
Yeah, I guess the best case scenario would have been if it was something that they also sent to Toronto, but
see, they weren't there yet.
They couldn't do it. Yeah,
it wasn't film. It was if they'd had well, but here's the thing. When's the first TV station that went on the air in Toronto? What would they have done with it? Watched it in their fucking living room if they sent them a film? They couldn't show it to anybody.
Good question.
Right. Look that up in your fucking Google machine there, young Brian Laugh, while I take over your program. Because that's the thing. If they had filmed the match, then we would still have it. But what would they have done with the film? They were doing an experimental broadcast in conjunction with St. Louis's first TV station. That's how they got this deal hooked up anyway. And part of the deal was that the TV station was checking their television broadcasting equipment, not a film crew. So they broadcast it all right, just nobody saw it. But if they had shot a film there in February 1947 in St. Louis and sent it to Toronto, what would they have on the side of that? What's that big, not the Sky Dome, but the Space Needle, or that big needle in Toronto? Are they going to put a sheet up on the side of that and show the film on the fucking wall? How would they have shown it to people?
And I can't find a firm answer. The first Canadian stations signed on in September 52, but that seems really late.
No, it doesn't. And I'll tell you why, because I've done a little research on this before. You would be surprised at how late some places in Canada got television. You'd be surprised at how late some places in Europe got television as opposed to the United States. That's not out of the realm of reason at all that the first TV station in Canada did not go on the air until 1952. We're willing to be corrected, but it's not a glaring situation. And there were still TV stations in this country. There are markets that did not have television stations, some of the smaller markets, into the late 50s.
Well, Jim, I know a lot of the listeners want you to keep the history coming on these shows. But
it's your show.
And I also know that a lot of listeners may want to keep their hair. How's that for you?
And they're tearing it out of their heads right now trying to keep up with us. Well, folks, if you want to keep up, as Brian said, with your hair, then for heaven's sake, you need to know about our friends at Keeps. We've given the statistics before that a large majority of gentlemen, especially our age, experience some hair loss and male pattern baldness and all that type of thing. But folks, if you go to Keeps, they can help you keep what you've got and even bring some back that you may have kissed goodbye forever for. And it can't grow hair on a billiard ball, but it can definitely help rejuvenate the follicles in your head. If it's easy to be delivered to your home, you don't have to go out and have a doctor looking at your head with a microscope. It's prescription medication, the very discreet packaging and generic versions of some of that expensive stuff. It works just as good. But anyway, they offer a simple, stress-free way to keep your hair. Virtual doctor consultations and medications, as I mentioned, delivered every 3 months. You don't have to leave the house. And treatments start at just $10 a month. Proven results. They've got more 5-star reviews than any competitor. But prevention is the key because treatments can take 4 to 6 months to see results. So you need to act fast. And what you can do, if you're ready to take action and prevent hair loss, go to Keeps, Keeps, Keeps.com/JCE to get your first month of treatment for free. Keeps.com/JCE, your first month free at Keeps.com/JCE. Brian, I think it'll even work for you. Even though I understood from Mama Cornette, she always said that hair won't grow unless you have a very fertile mind, which means a head full of shit.
Hence, I have lots of hair.
And you're running this show.
And let's see how much more shit can come out of my mouth here on this show. Jim, a popular topic over the last maybe close to a week. I don't know when the actual interview aired. I didn't hear the whole thing. I only heard clips. But many people have sent this in. Tony Khan was recently on a satellite radio show hosted by Bubba Ray Dudley. Or Buddy Ray Dudley. I don't know what his name is now, but did you hear these clips?
He'll always be Bubba Ray to me. Yes, I heard these clips that were broadcast through the Twitterverse.
In the clips that I received, and I'm assuming the same ones you received, Bubba, or Buddy, is questioning Tony Khan about the referees in AEW. And in what I thought was a pretty nice way, pointed to the guy who's the most egregious example to anyone. Said, well, let's take Rick Knox, for instance.
Well, no, hold on a second now. Before he even got there, before he even got to mentioning any names, to fingering anybody, to mentioning anybody's names, to dropping a dime on anybody, he asked Bubba did in a lot more professional and polite way than I would have. He's got the New Jersey accent, so he does come across a little bit huffy sometimes, but it wasn't like me saying, hey, idiot, what the fuck, right? It was a respectful and polite question. You said at the start of this, rules, sports-based presentation, wins and losses were going to matter, rules were going to be the presentation that you gave us. Do you not think that there is any problem with the refereeing and he automatically, Tony Khan jumps in. No, I don't. No. And he started feeding on something that Bubba had said in his preamble. Bubba is in talking about the things they'd been promised, more sports-based rules, wins and losses. Bubba tried to mention that they'd had, for a while there, remember, for about 3-4 weeks, they made a big deal out of tag teams have a 10 count to break instead of 5. Do you remember? Do you even remember that, Brian?
I think it was right around the time when FTR was getting used.
Yeah. They brought that up for like 4 weeks, and then fuck it, that's gone. Bubba conflated that with the count out of the ring, and he misspoke, and he said, well, you got a 20 count out of the ring. And Tony Khan said, no, we don't have any problem with the referees. And no, and you're talking, that's a New Japan thing. New Japan has a 20 count. We don't have a 20 count. And we never bump the referees. And
he jumped all over the 20 count thing.
Yes.
To avoid everything else that he was being called out on. He couldn't handle that pressure.
So then Bubba reeled it back and said, okay, not about the count, but don't you think with the refereeing that you see an issue when guys are allowed to do anything? And that's when he brought up Rick Knox. And once again, the Dudleys had their share of wild and crazy matches. And they were disciples of ECW, for heaven's sake. So it's not like we're wanting to go back to the fucking wrestling equivalent of the Marcus of Queensberry rules. It's not like has to be overly technical. He said for the psychology of the match, doesn't it seem the referee should have some authority? And he mentioned Rick Knox, and he said in the Young Bucks matches, and then Tony Khan flips out again. He's like, well, we don't bump the referees. And also, when the Bucks wrestled so-and-so and so-and-so, and the Bucks wrestled I don't remember anybody complaining about the 10 count, but okay, whatever. I'm here to talk about some more important things now. Fucking defensive. His butthole puckered up instantly as soon as somebody mentioned another experienced industry veteran mentioned even one of they might say it's a minor problem. I think it's bigger, but a minor issue. Not like, oh my God, you just showed the crash pads on national television. But hey, couldn't your referees have a bit more of a fucking less limp dick than they do? And he fucking goes ballistic. And who was some wise wrestling sage said to me at some point that Tony Khan has convinced himself that he is the booker of the year and nobody's going to talk him out of it.
That's right.
But again, when it wasn't even confrontational and it wasn't in a jousting situation and Tony Khan's not trying to be a heel, and I assume Bubba's not trying to be he's just coming off like one, Tony Khan. And I assume Bubba's not trying to be a heel on his own program, asking a polite question.
I've never heard him sound as reasonable as he did there in 25 fucking years. I've never heard him that reasonable.
But the Booker of the Year won't hear about it. Anything that might be wrong, that a lot of people are talking about, he just can't hear it. And it's embarrassing the way that and again, not only did he managed to dodge the subject or dodge the question, not answer the question, give a phony answer to the question, come off bad sounding when he did it, and then pivot to telling Bubba Ray that what he had just wanted to talk about wasn't important, and I'm going to plug my show now because I'm a brilliant booker. All in like a 2.5 minute span of time. It was amazing.
And he says he's never heard these complaints before about Rick Knox. Hey, give me a break. I know for a fact you hear him twice a week.
On these shows.
On your favorite podcast.
Yes.
You idiot.
Oh, idiot.
How defensive was he and pissy? And as soon as you question him, you see what Jacksonville Jaguar fans have seen. You see what Fulham soccer fans or football fans have seen. A guy who can't take this because he's not built for this. He's built to cash his dad's checks, but he's not built to run a serious organization and have to answer for the problems there. He can't take it. He can't take any criticism.
Hey, he's built for looks, not for speed.
That was embarrassing. I thought that appearance with him was embarrassing.
It was pretty good because you could have even bullshitted your way through just to say, well, I think that we are going to try to make sure that our referees follow the example of Aubrey, for example, that's so authoritative. And we're going to have to try to invest a little time in getting them to try to crack their whips a little bit or some bullshit, right? To acknowledge that, yes, you're running a bunch of fucking amateur matches where everybody just runs around like goddamn Chinese fire drill and fucking everybody's head's on fire. Nobody does anything about it. It's why the matches don't register with people. With whatever the fans are looking for that defend this shit to the heavens, it registers with them because I guess America's Got Talent, the tumbling acts are not enough. They want to see it on a regular basis. But for the vast majority of people who are not currently watching the program, they don't register because everything can happen at any point, which means there's no way to cheat. There's no way to get upset at anything. And the only time that anybody stays down from something is when they really fucking hurt themselves. And while the referees are standing there going, well, there's no rules to this because it's wrestling. I'll just wave my arms. So, but he doesn't see that. No problems there, Brian.
No problems handling the wrestling press when they're kissing your ass or asking you softball questions or things you want to talk about. But AEW and Tony Khan specifically have really done a bad job, I think, with the press the last several months. I mean, even after the botched explosion, remember, it was never, we're never going to let that happen again.
Yeah.
We're going to improve things. It was, oh, Kenny's plan didn't work. What?
Yeah.
You idiot. This is the way you're going to handle this?
After all these years, now you want to be able to take the easy out and blame the heel. Lazy booking.
Well, let's get away from little Mr. Khan. Our next question, Jim, sent in to CornyDriveThru at gmail.com from Craig Whiteman. WWE recently broadcast a special on the top 50 tag teams in WWF, and WWE history. These are only tag teams that wrestled in WWE, but it seems they also took into account work in other territories. I'd love to hear Jim's feedback. Have you seen this list of the top 50 tag teams of all time?
No, well, people were tweeting it as, I guess they released it in dribbles and drabs, like a week here or a week there, whatever day, and they 10 at a time. And I honestly didn't go through it with any minute detail. I know when they got to number one, I know who they named it. I just laughed and went on. But is this even serious enough that we really need to look at it? I can, if you want.
I mean, I could ask you, because a lot of people have sent it in, but again, you kind of hit on it. How do you take this seriously? It's a joke list. I'm going to read you just the top 10 to start. We'll see where we want to go from here.
Yeah.
You'll see. I mean, it's a WWE-centric list. Top 10, I'm going to go from...
Well, I don't even mind WWE-centric list if it's if the name of the list is the top 10 teams in WWE history, and that takes into account WWF and WWF, I can buy that. Just when they got to number one, that's when I fucking blew snot. Because come on, seriously.
Well, here's 10 to 1. Number 10, the British Bulldogs. Number 9, the Brothers of Destruction.
Well, wait a minute. Hold on now. Slow down here a second.
Okay.
Let's not just throw this away, because I have a feeling we won't want to go past the top 10.
Yeah, by the way, I have 50 names. You can tell me wherever you want me to start.
Yeah, no, let's start.
Oh, my God. Hold on.
Did you just now see number one?
No, I just now saw some of the other ones. I'm going to read you. This is ridiculous. I'm going to read you from 36 to 30.
Okay, all right.
Number 36, Money Inc., Ted DiBiase and Erwin R. Shyster.
Okay.
Number 35, greatest tag teams in company history, Jericho, Chris Jericho and The Big Show. Exactly. Number 34, The Natural Disasters, Earthquake and Typhoon. Number 33, The Street Profits, Montez Ford and Angelo Dawkins. Number 32, The Briscoe Brothers, Jack and Jerry Briscoe.
Yeah, that's what, okay.
Even if it was a company list, they were only in the company as a tag team for a few months.
Well, but besides that, you have, honestly, Ted DiBiase and IRS, who had some fairly swell run, 3 points below Chris Jericho and Big Show that did whatever the fuck for a couple of months, and the Street Profits that I couldn't pick out of a lineup, followed by the Briscoe Brothers. If you're going to stick them in there, then rate them as their entire body of work instead of the 2 months they spent in the WWF, because how could the Briscoe Brothers be number 30-something on a list of tag teams? But go ahead. This is so rottenly random. Go ahead.
You'll be happy to know that OVW veterans M&M were number 42 on the list.
Oh, Jesus Christ. All right.
But I'll go back up to the top of the list here. I'm trying to scan it to see if there's any other interesting ones that pop out. The Soul Patrol, Rocky Johnson and Tony Atlas, number 19. They only tagged up like a handful of times because they hated each other. So that's interesting they got to the top. But here's number 10 to 1. Number 10, the British Bulldogs.
And that's what I was going to say. The British Bulldogs, on the surface of it, a top 10 tag team in the WWF or any iteration of it, that's perfectly reasonable, right? My God, imagine that run at a period of time where business was huge.
In terms of influence, in terms of popularity, and of course, if you were looking at the decade of the 80s, they were on the short list of the top tag teams of the decade. So that's reasonable.
Reasonable.
Number 9, the Brothers of Destruction, Undertaker and Kane.
I think just because of the star power that both of those guys possess, I wouldn't think of either one of them as tag team wrestlers.
That's
but even
it.
though they, but at the same point of that level of star power and magnitude, since they did team up, I can buy that. Top 10.
Number 8, the New Age Outlaws, Road Dogg and Billy Gunn.
Now I'm starting to think, well, wait a minute. Where's the Road Warriors? Where's the Hart Foundation? I'm starting to think of I like both guys, but for top 10, I'm starting to think about, wait a minute. There's a number of teams not accounted for yet at this point. We're using spaces.
They are one of my least favorite tag teams of all time. And I can't think of a single like classic match of theirs or great match. And I know you could point to maybe the stuff with them and Mick and Terry
I can point to the King of the Ring at one year when with the new Midnight Express, Bart Gunn and Bob Holly wrestled the Billy Gunn and Road Dogg, and I had to stand there frozen in time for like a minute and a half, waiting for China to figure out she had to run completely around the other side of the ring to come in behind me and nut shot me. Go ahead.
Number 7, the Usos, Jimmy and Jay.
I like those guys from what I've seen of them. It hasn't been that much, but we're still where the fuck is the Hart Foundation and the Road Warriors and the fucking Rockers and teams that you would think in the WWF history that still need to be taking up a couple of these spots.
You know, that is one of the interesting things, because when you look at the British Bulldogs were there 85 to 88. Demolition, who were number 11 on this
Demolition.
list.
They were number 11?
Number 11. Well, you know, Bill Eadie and Vince will get along, but number 11, Demolition were there from, they debuted in 87. They finished up with Bill Eadie in 1990. They kind of slowly went into 1991 and then they broke up. You know, a lot of these teams are only together a few years. The Usos have been a team and been in WWE for, I mean, I don't know the exact year, but it has to be close to a decade. So although they're not as memorable as some of these tag teams from the 80s, or really all the tag teams from the 80s, I guess if you're equating their run and just the amount of years they've been there and the titles they've held, I guess that would be the justification, right?
Well, but length is only good in other things. You can be the world's worst at something and do it for 20 years. But maybe we should figure out a formula, because if you were a top team in the 80s or 90s, you were seen by the equivalent number of people in 2 or 3 years as in modern day teams are seen in 10. So maybe it's like dog years. We got to figure out an equation.
How many people were you seen by a week? I mean, those teams worked house shows every night. That's the other thing. I mean, you got to see them over and over and over. But to continue on with the list.
Well, that's I can't even do the math in my head now. I could get the Midnight Express book out and try, but this is July. The month of July 35 years ago was the 1986 Great American Bashes. We probably were seen by, would you think, just that month, 200,000 people live, plus television, and all the programs were being seen by well over 1 million people.
Well, speaking of the Great American Bash, number 6 on the list, the Legion of Doom, Hawk and Animal.
Okay, top 10 anywhere, even though the Road Warriors was their real box office run, but they'd need on the list regardless.
Number 5, the Dudley Boys, Bubba Ray and Devon.
Actually, I'm trying to think, has there been a tag team since them in the WWF that's been worth a shit as a tag team, as any kind of impact on the box office?
I'm not a big fan of theirs, but I don't think there's any tag team today that is as over as the Dudleys were at their peak with WWE.
So, top 10, yes. I'm not sure about the placement.
Number 4, Edge and Christian.
Again, they were a great team. Did they mean more to where's the Hart Foundation?
They are on the list.
Okay, but
I'll spoil it right now. Number 3 is the Hart Foundation.
Okay, I don't know if Edge and Christian, just in terms of box office or popularity or whatever, should be ahead of the Bulldogs. but I can take it. It's not egregious. And the Hart Foundation is number 3. What team from the 80s do you think of, really, if you think of WWF 80s, what team do you think of more or most? You were even a bigger 80s WWF fan than I was.
For the 80s, it would be Bulldogs and the Heart. Well, for mid-80s, Bulldogs and the Hearts. And then like by 89, Demolition. People forget just how big Demolition was. But 89 into WrestleMania 6, Demolition were massive with me and all my friends. And then they just completely cooled them off and blew the Road Warriors feud right away.
Yeah. But anyway, so yes. So Hart Foundation number 3. But I know who number 1 is, but I'm trying to think who could be number 2.
Well, it's pretty obvious when you look at who was number 5 and who was number 4. Number 2, the Hardy Boys, Matt and Jeff.
Ooh. I can say top 10 with them, but I can't, I don't, on top of the Hart Foundation, on top of the Bulldogs, on top of the Road Warriors. I'm not sure about the placement.
Some other ones, of course, New Day, number 1. You already knew that.
No, we didn't say it on the program, but I already knew it. And that's where I just fucking blew snot and didn't even pay attention to the list. Because, come on. Fucking seriously? The New Day is better than the Bulldogs, and better than the Hart Foundation, and better than the Road Warriors, and better than the Edge of Christian, and better than the... What fucking marks make these lists up? I'm not even saying they suck, but seriously? That's like just because, well, let's take the best baseball player we have on our current team and rank them above Joe DiMaggio, Ty Cobb, Babe Ruth, and fucking Mickey Mantle because we don't have those guys anymore.
Well, that was the list of the 50 greatest tag teams in WWE history as selected by WWE.
As selected by some minion deep in the bowels of the building, as Vince loves to say. Vince loves the word bowels.
That doesn't surprise me one bit, but Jim...
That's why the boiler room, the arena-wide fights that they used to have in the Attitude Era, they're in the bowels of the building.
Well, let's stay on the topic of WWE.
Of bowels? Oh, okay.
Of WWE. Let's stay on the topic of WWE.
What would you like to know about my colon?
A popular topic sent in by many people. I'll read this one here, sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Damon in Ohio. What are your thoughts, Jim, on Zelina Vega returning to WWE? He said, do you think a condition in her return was to give up Twitch? But I know you wouldn't know that. But what do you think of Zelina Vega returning to WWE?
I'm just punched as pleased for her. I have no... Here's the thing. She got a ton of bad publicity on them. With the whole thing, how long ago was it? It seems like forever now, but it wasn't even a year ago.
No, it was the spring, I think, or maybe February, March, somewhere in there.
Yeah, it wasn't spring yet. It wasn't, I love to sing about the moon and the June. It wasn't there yet, but obviously she took a stand. She got some bad publicity on them, and they've probably been talking quietly ever since about, well, let's do something. Let's just, we're not going to bring you right back because then it looks like we fucked up, but we'll get you back eventually, and we'll potentially do something for you quietly until then, or whatever. Who knows what the fuck these deals are? Possibly there was unmarked, non-sequential serial number bills in shoe boxes in the Home Depot parking lot. We have no idea.
Mike Johnson, a PW insider who always does a good job, reported that there have been talks since the moment she left. There were people in the company that didn't want her to go, which is becoming a familiar story. I mean, that's Triple H and Samoa Joe right there. But Zelina Vega, they had talks going on during this period of time, and WWE apologized to her, and now they got her back.
Well, yeah, and also didn't they just shut down and or fire the guy that was supposed to be heading the department that was going to do all the
third party, yeah,
the twitching and the fucking twittering and the twitching and the glitching and all the things they were going to do that they were going to give the guys part of their own money for. And they closed that down. So they're probably just trying to, do this slowly and kind of act like nobody notices. Not that Zelina Vega is coming back. People are noticing that, obviously, but they're trying to smooth over the other stuff like all is as it was before. Nothing more to see here.
Remember, she was the one who was having conversations with the head of the Screen Actors Guild.
Yeah, and also, oh, God damn it, our favorite politician who was talking about that.
Andrew Yang.
Andrew Yang.
He's been quiet about wrestling for a while, hasn't he?
Well, what's he doing these days?
Well, he was running for mayor in New York, but that's not working out.
Well, I think he needs to go back to talking about wrestling. But once he gets on the case, we'll get these things settled. But yeah, they're probably just quietly trying to just smooth everything back over. And here's another question, not even related necessarily to Zelina Vega. Who else had to shut down? And this might not even be a question you can answer. Possibly the minions out there in the cult of Cornette can chime in. Who else in the WWE had to shut down their Twitches and their social media and their interactive shit that they were making money on, that the WWE threw the hissy fit about and basically said, well, it's our money, and yeah, and we'll give you part of your own money, but we're going to run it, and it'll be so much better. Who gave that up, and now is the office replacing it, since they just fired the guy that was going to run the department and that whole thing? Or is it just left laying there? Who's pissed about this? That's what I'm wondering. Who's pissed that's still there, not who was pissed that's coming back? Because think about this, Brian Last. Oh, great wrestling savant. If you were a person in the WWE who said, oh, okay, well, I'd rather have this job than play video games on the internet or whatever the fuck they're doing for money, and you just dropped your shit and you played along, and now they have fired the guy that was going to do that and gutted that department, as we've heard, and now they're bringing back somebody that was actually let go and or walked out or quit or didn't fight it or whatever. And you're like, well, hey, motherfucker, I gave up my shit, and now everything's okay with it. She probably got a raise. What about me? You left me out.
That's an interesting question. That's an interesting question. Do you think she got a raise? Do you think Samoa Joe got a raise?
Well, for the goddamn aggravation, I would hope that there was something involved, such as we'll give you a little extra to come back and not hate us for putting you through this publicly. Because it's not even more now. In the territory days, we used to finish guys up and just, okay, you'll finish on September 15th. That's your last date. We wouldn't announce it to the fans. You would be watching your local program and you just wouldn't see that guy anymore. And he'd be working somewhere else where they didn't know that he just got fired from somewhere. It's a new star coming in. Boy, the promoters had to pay a lot of money for him, not, oh, shit. So-and-so wrestling just kicked him the fuck out the door, and now we got him. It's fucking stupid on both sides. Don't advertise to the goddamn fans when you fire somebody. They'll figure it out when you don't see him anymore. But it's not damaging that person as an attraction. And on the other side of it, you know, the next place that he goes isn't getting some fucking guy that just got fired. But anyway, I would have to think if somebody's just sitting there minding their own business, doing what they're being told to do, and some of these people even were cooperating with new music or with new ideas, and all of a sudden they get fired, and they tell the people on the internet around the world, yeah, we just fired old Ned. And then somebody asks old Ned to come back right after he's been embarrassed. If I was old Ned, I'd say, yeah, I'd like some fucking salve for that embarrassment. Elsewise, I'll just be over here, motherfucker. So who knows?
So you're not surprised she went back?
Well, no, because, I mean, if they have been talking ever since she was let go, then possibly they realized very early on that there was a public relations situation with her talking to the Screen Actors Guild and Mayor Yang. And they've probably just been discussing it, and everybody let their feelings cool down. I would have to think. I know the way Vince used to fucking operate, more like a wrestling promoter. Cut so-and-so a check. Make sure they're happy. or whatever the fuck. But I don't know if they do that anymore, but that's the way you should do things in the wrestling business. If you put somebody through something, here, grease so-and-so and let him know that we fucked up.
Well, perhaps Vince can make things a little better with Zelina by supplying her with a healthy breakfast.
Well, you know what? You know how I feel when I don't get a healthy breakfast? Just like that. I like that one today. I'm enjoying that sound. But I'll tell you what, you know what? I do that a lot, too, around the house here because the Magic Spoon keeps disappearing. We have a box of Magic Spoon being delivered here to the castle grounds at least once a week these days. And by the time I can turn around, jump down, turn around, and kiss my ass twice, it's gone because Stacy loves it and she's doing the keto-friendly diet. I'm not going to say how much weight she's lost because then that's not polite. That gets into a woman's weight. But she has lost almost as much as old dwarf dongsucker weighs, for heaven's sake, on this keto thing. And, of course, that's only 22 pounds, so, somewhere in that range. But anyway, find out why that I can't even get Magic Spoon in my own home when they're a sponsor of mine. That's how good it tastes by going to magicspoon.com. Because whether you eat cereal for breakfast or as a snack or any part of the day, whether the kids like it, they like all the sugar, but you don't want them bouncing off the walls like souped up ping pong balls. So you don't want them to eat sugar and carbs and junk. The best part about Magic Spoon is they've got all the classic cereal flavors covered, and they all taste great, but they're healthy and delicious at the same time. Instead of one or the other, 0 grams of sugar, 13 to 14 grams of protein, and 4 net grams of carbs in each serving, only 140 calories a serving. I mentioned keto-friendly, also gluten-free, grain-free, soy-free, low-carb, and GMO-free. But what not free, Brian? That's taste. And you can build your own box or you can get the variety pack. Cocoa, fruity, frosted, peanut butter, blueberry, and cinnamon. Whatever you choose, go to magicspoon.com/Jim, Jim, to grab your delicious custom bundle or variety pack and try it today and use the promo code Jim at checkout to save $5 off the order. Remember the 100% happiness guarantee? If you don't like it for any reason, they will refund your money, no questions asked. A few dirty grimaces will be exchanged, but they won't ask you a question. Get your next delicious bowl of guilt-free cereal at magicspoon.com/Jim and use the code Jim to save $5 off. You can just walk around the house eating this stuff like trail mix, Brian.
Well, I might need some trail mix to continue on this path here today, Jim, but we have another AEW question, and this one...
Oh, God. I might need some trail mix mixed in with some Xanax.
Well, I actually emailed you...
Yeah, all it would take is a squeak from your chair to just send me over the edge right now.
Oh, hold on. There we go. Hey, now listen, I emailed you, Jim. Check your email. I emailed you an article from Wrestling Inc. that several people this morning have sent to us. It came out yesterday. These are quotes from QT Marshall's appearance on the AEW Unrestricted podcast. And some of these quotes these are specifically the reason why so many of the listeners have sent this in. They think that you are going to have a interesting series of thoughts about these quotes, I guess.
An interesting take on what it was. I've clicked on this thing now. And as you said, it was the AEW Unrestricted pod. That's where they're not restricted to their rooms. That's where they can stay out late. Remember when you used to get restricted when you were grounded, when you were a minor? Anyway, Aubrey Edwards and Tony Schiavone complimented QT Marshall's work behind the scenes to the point of almost not sleeping. And Marshall responded, "I appreciate it," Marshall expressed, "and I like QT. We've talked about him before. I know him from Ring of Honor back in 2012 or whatever. But apparently he's one of the well-meaning zookeepers in this fucking menagerie. I appreciate it," Marshall expressed. "Well, the thing is, our boss, he likes to hang out and be up very late." That sounds like the first line of our theme song. Wednesday night, I like to stay up late, watch kids. Anyway, Every now and then I'll go to sleep. I'll say, hey, just text me the stuff, and I'll put it on paper the next morning. But then the other day he texted me. I guess we both forgot something. He wrote, well, I was doing it by myself. Wow. So I was like, okay, point noted. I won't be leaving you by yourself anymore. And this loop was the hard loop. I said, all right, if I can get through these 4 days, I can handle anything. God damn it. My best string in Mid-South Wrestling was 103 days in a row with 2 airplane flights in the middle of that. Everything else was in the car. But anyway, I said, all right, if I can get through these 4 days, I can handle anything. We did it. We made it. Those long loops. That was the end of an era. Things like a taped Dynamite can take 4 hours compared to a live 2-hour show. What? Because they give Tony the option to go back and check and make sure he loves everything. Wait a minute. You mean to tell me they're actually doing this shit on these taped shows and he's going back and saying, yes, we should air this. Let's move on. If there's an option not to.
Oh, that's what you honed in on. I like the idea that taking 4 hours to do a 2-hour show because Tony wants him to redo stuff. That's the way I read it.
Well, I'm just thinking about what actually makes the air. This is what they're happy with, apparently. He's a perfectionist. It's his product, his name on the line, and I get it, but I'm just sitting there like, oh, man, I swear that was good. And if it's not good, you know what? That's the wrestler's fault. It's not your fault, Tony. Oh, my God.
Oh, man.
Hee. Then he talks...
it's not your fault, Tony. That should be the name of the AEW book one day.
It's not your
What every wrestler told him until they were gone. It's not your fault, Tony.
Well, but now in his defense here, in QT's defense of making that statement, it is quite a bit of it is the wrestler's fault. There's plenty of fault to go around. And he talked about QT did about his original goal in wrestling compared to where he is now. Well, I used to think, man, if Vince McMahon and Triple H found out how this was really happening, they would laugh. And then I realized, you know what? I'm pretty good at this, though, so fuck them. Oh, my. Marshall said in jest, is the quote. Then I thought about it for a while, and I thought how honored I was, honestly, to be given the responsibility and trusted with that responsibility to pass along those details of what's supposed to happen on the shows. It's pretty cool. You know what would be even cooler is if he didn't have to be the one given the responsibility to pass along these goofy fucking details from this up late at night Adderall for breakfast fucking booker. QT says, a couple of years ago when I opened my training facility, I really thought that was going to be it. I was just going to train wrestlers and kind of run our own little rinky-dink shows, and that'd be the end of it. And now that idea has turned into a dream job of helping run a complete opposite of a rinky-dink show. Well, one of the #1 television shows. It's pretty crazy how it all works out.
It sure is. It sure is. If you ever have any questions about what's going on over there, it's Tony Khan and QT Marshall, the Brain Trust, putting together the shows. Give me a break. I don't know. And they're all congratulating themselves. They all congratulate themselves. It's all like, hey, we're just doing all this, and it all works out great. We're doing great. Yeah, but the show sucks. But the show sucks, and you don't gain any viewers. But, hey, some people like the matches. But the booking sucks, and the promos suck, and the layout sucks. And if you're responsible for the layout in any way, QT, you're not doing a good job.
Maybe they should do it during the daytime. But, I used to do that. I used to stay up all hours of the night writing television, but mine certainly did not look like these. But of course I was up naturally because that was just my time clock. I was not under any extra influences or something.
Well, the more we find out about the inner workings of AEW, the more I am not surprised by what we see each and every week on nationwide television.
Wednesday night, we get to stay up late and watch AEW while Tony...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Jim, AEW may not be getting things right, but I have to say, I don't watch too much Ring of Honor, but on your suggestion, on your recommendation, I did watch the Briscoe versus Briscoe, what do you call it, chicken match?
The fight on a farm.
Well, that's what it is, and I watched it. I'm assuming you did as well.
I did as well, and we talked about it. And before we talked about that we were going to watch it, and I did watch it. I want you to just briefly, before I go into anything, just give me your first blush, and then we can talk. But did you give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down?
I gave it a thumbs up, but let me just say, once again, I'm not crazy about these style of matches. I don't even know if you call it that. I mean, it's a cinematic match, but I thought they did it better.
This wasn't even cinematic. What about an on-location match to call this? On-location match.
They did this better than everyone else has done it, although I'm not crazy about the concept, but they did it really well. I'll say that the Briscoes are great. Every time I see them, I remember how great they are. But the father, I haven't seen too much of the father. That guy should go to Hollywood. That guy's ready for some roles as like a Cajun villain or something.
He could make a fucking fortune doing something. He's a fantastic wrestling gimmick. All of them are, because they're real. We're going to talk about it. And I just wanted you to give that, because I didn't want to sit here and put this thing over and then have everybody say, well, Brian's just going to agree with him. And then you agree with me.
I'm not a big fan of whether you want to call them cinematic, whether you want to call them cinematic matches or whatever. I'm not a big fan of these location matches. But this was not done in any way to be insulting. It actually made sense to further the story. You know, I saw the video package early on. The father saying, you guys got to get back. You got to do this. You have to fight each other. So again, not crazy about the overall concept, but the best I've seen anyone do it.
And folks, as we continue putting this thing over, you can go to ROHWrestling.com, I assume right now. I don't know. If you're hearing this in 3 months, you might have to look. But it's the most recent episode of the television. If you didn't see it over the weekend, you can go to the website and you can watch this thing. Here's the deal. We've talked before a number of times about when you have the difference between when you have a match that needs a stadium or a stadium that needs a match. Kerry and Flair in Dallas after David died, that was a match that needed a stadium. There was no place indoors that they could hold the amount of people that would buy tickets to see it. The Great American Bash in Charlotte in 85 and 86. There was no place indoors you could get that many people. Certain matches, certain events need a stadium. But then, as we saw with a few successive David Von Erich memorial tributes in Texas, when they try to do it every year, or they try to just do it and say, well, we're going to rent the stadium and we're going to have a show, that's when you have a stadium that needs a match. If there had been no cinematic matches thus far to this point, it would be great, because this was a situation where they actually had a call for one. If that makes any sense. This was not just, we're going to find a fucking place outside and we're going to dress it like a graveyard and we're going to have a movie set and a movie shoot. Or we're going to go to a fucking football field just because our billionaire owner owns it, even though nobody on this field's ever played football in their fucking life. Or whatever, and just shoehorning, but just because somebody's a dentist, we're going to have a fight in a fucking dentist's office. And just the visual being corny and stupid and silly. The reason why I've always liked the Briscoes is because they are real. They're not real in terms of, no, everything they do in a wrestling ring is not real, but they're real in terms of their gimmicks are not far-fetched. They're them. And the reason why Jay calls Mark Chicken, not because he's a coward, but because since he was the younger brother, he was the one that had to fucking shovel the dead chickens out of the chicken coop. They're brothers. It's not a wrestling thing. He's called him Chicken before the wrestling. They are on their farm with their father. None of this shit was dressed as a movie set, was said they put stuff in that would be there anyway in place to reach it. But the whole premise of this was the Briscoe brothers, even though they've been the greatest tag team in the world for all this time in Ring of Honor, every once in a while they have a match. Every once in a while, they get grumpy with each other. They fought all their life and competed all their life on the farm and in sports and etc. They showed the pictures in the package. It's true life shit that they just draw on. And after the 500th episode where they had one, I think they've had 2 or 3 matches while they've been in Ring of Honor. After their 500th episode, where they had a match and I think Jay won, or it was a count out. The point is, there's still the rivalry. Mark said he didn't want me to get to victory. He didn't want me to get to pinfall, whatever the case. And Papa Briscoe, who, as you said, is like the Johnny Cash of wrestling, with that voice and the way he delivers lines. And also, he's 40 or 50 pounds bigger than either Mark or Jay. He's the goddamn most impressive physical specimen in the family. It's almost like the fucking redneck Delaware version of the Armstrongs.
Hey, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Because you obviously worked with them a long time, even before you booked Ring of Honor or were involved behind the scenes in Ring of Honor. You did shots for them, so you were around them a long time. When did you first hear about or meet the father?
It wasn't until the second run. I managed them a couple of times in 2004, 5-ish, when Gabe had asked me to come in and just make some shots. And to be honest, they were, 18, 19 years old. I've said they were puppies with big paws. They were doing a lot of shit. A lot of it didn't look very good. They were, they were just eager. But then the second time, from 2009 to 2012, they had grown up and they'd gotten older and better and polished their shit, and they could talk, and they just didn't look so young and inexperienced. And that's when, were you there at the show with we were in the Manhattan Center or the Hammerstein, one or the other, where Papa Briscoe had a 6-man with them. Papa Briscoe, Mark and Jay against the Kings of Wrestling and Shane Hagedorn, their manager. So it was Chris Hero and Claudio Cesaro.
I don't think I was there for that one, no.
That was one of my favorite matches because the New York fans it was classic wrestling. Take the babyface team and a member of their family, in this case, their father. And we did an angle on TV to explain all of this, where Papa Briscoe slapped the piss out of fucking Shane Hagen. No, it was Chris Hero, I think he slapped. But anyway, against the heel team and their manager in a 6-man. And the New York fans wanted to hate this, and they wanted to hoot at it because it was too wrestling. And Papa Briscoe got in there and not only kept up his end, but did a flying clothesline off the top rope. And we did some tag team stuff. And the Hero and Claudio were such an incredible heel team that they ended up giving an ovation, the fans did, to Papa Briscoe. And the people loved the fucking match. And then he was surprised. We tried to pay him and he didn't want to take it. And they had driven the RV, the Winnebago, the Briscoe mobile, up from Sandy Fork to New York because the whole family came up. I said, there's a few $100 what it take the family out to dinner in New York, for God's sake. But he understands wrestling because obviously he was a fan. He watched wrestling, and that's what Mark and Jay watched it when they grew up, so they knew what wrestling was and how to think about it. But he's also just an incredible personality. And that voice and the fact that he's like all the Briscoes, especially Jay, when he cuts a promo on you and swears that he's going to commit some kind of mayhem, you believe it. You believe him on television, looking in those eyes. And they never sound like the shit's been written for them. They always sound natural. Even if wrestling's a work and what they're saying is a hype to hype the fight, it sounds like they came up with it and it's good. The package where they set the rivalry up was brilliant because it was real. And Mark Briscoe can be silly without being silly because he's not trying to be silly. There's a little element of some deliverance in this gimmick, but it works and it's believable. But anyway, this was not, as I said, I don't want to call it cinematic because they had 2 handheld cameras following them around. And this fight was done except for one thing that I'll mention here in a second, was done in believable real time, where there were no obvious edits. There was a couple commercial breaks because this was television, but
no commentary.
There was no commentary. There was no spooky music over it. It was 2 handheld cameras shooting these guys having a fucking fight. And the way they got into it, just the first scene set the stage. You're inside a dark area, and a garage door opens up, and you see Papa Briscoe's face there, and he just goes and walks in, and there the Briscoes walk in, and this is the shed on their farm that they legitimately have this shitty ass ring set up in. And it's
by the way, tighten those ropes. Tighten those ropes somewhat.
Well, it's been there for 20 years. And can you imagine the smell in there and the mildew? Because there's a dirt floor. There was old spare tires underneath the ring. And it's not like they dressed it for this occasion. You can tell some of this shit's been there 15 years, right? That's what made it. This is really their place and what they have there. And Papa Briscoe sounded like a Denver Pile as Briscoe Darling. He starts it out. He's not even the referee. He's just the observer, but he starts it out. All right, boys, keep it clean and fight like men. Let's do this. And then he backs out and they start a fight. And in this shitty ring, they got in their fucking shed and all that stuff leaning on the walls. They fucking fight out on the dirt floor. They didn't go crazy with sledgehammers and shots with ridiculous implements that nobody could live through. Jay swung a shovel that he grabbed off the wall, and Mark ducked it, and Papa Briscoe said, "Get back in the ring." And if they would go too far or try to go too far, they would have a legitimate reason. Either somebody ducked something before it landed, or Papa Briscoe just, hey, there was a table set up there with tools all over it and fucking 6 months of fucking sawdust or whatever. And Mark goes to moonsault Jay, and Jay pushes him off, and he flips through that table. But it should have been there. It's a fucking shed. They go out the side door into the yard. The kicks and the punches and the trash talk and the grunts and the weird noises that the Briscoes make.
The weird noises. Let me stop you right now. That took me by surprise. Just the whole, every time he would go to punch his brother, you hear,
yeah. Well, it's Mark especially. But it goes back to the old days. And remember, we've talked about this, Harley Race, who learned from a guy like Wild Bill Longson. Oh, the constant chatter, the grunts when they're calling a one tackle. You can't really drop down, a drop kick. Yeah, but they take it to, but yeah, you can hear Mark sometimes when he does that froggy bow, not the frog splash, but the frog elbow, he'll shriek. You can hear it through the fucking arena. It'll pierce your fucking ears. They're fucking crazy. They fight to the pickup truck. There's a garbage can lid and a wash tub in the back of an old pickup truck sitting there next to the Briscoes camper that is legitimately, when they travel to shows very far away, they load the family up and they drive this fucking camper. They brought it to the Manhattan Center. That, like I said, that weekend of the Six Man. And then we even had, I don't know if they ever put it out or put it on TV, but we had the television crew, a couple of the camera people and the producer, a few other people follow them, or not follow them, but actually in the camper with the Briscoes for a weekend to shoot on the road with the Briscoes. Cause it's a fucking traveling caravan thing. Anyway. And then Jay's trash talk. I got you now, chicken. And it's, did you notice when he pulled a sheet of plywood out of the pickup truck, it wasn't brand new from Home Depot. It was an old, weathered, fucking stained up old piece of plywood that should come out of the back of a pickup truck. Just this attention to detail. And then Mark, to get free from Jay's oppression, hits him with a nut shot, and Papa Briscoe, as they did put in a shot of Papa Briscoe going, hey, now, like, hey, keep it clean, fight like men. But they, basically, Mark suplexes Jay through the sheet of plywood leaned off the back of the pickup truck, and Jay sold it like he had internal injuries. It wasn't this just constant. You felt like you could feel them hitting each other. Because, I mean, it's not like their work is, honest to God, is a little bit stiff to begin with. And then when they're working with each other, I'm surprised they weren't marked up worse than they were, because I've seen them just do shit with each other in the ring and come up with black eyes and bloody mouths. And then when Mark, there's a ladder laying next to the Winnebago. Mark leans it up on the Winnebago and climbs the ladder, and he's going, "You know I'm crazy. Act like you don't know I'm crazy." It's them. So that was one of my favorite favorite spots. It's entertainment without being fucking stupid, because Mark goes to the top of the camper, and what do we always complain about? Every time somebody dives, there's some fucking idiot waiting to catch them, right? So Mark goes up to the top of the fucking Winnebago, and Jay gets up to his feet and moves up and says, "Now what you gonna do, dumbass?" And Mark's, "I'm about to jump on your ass. What about, come up here. Are you scared? All right, motherfucker." And just enough bleeps to make things worth. So Jay climbs the ladder, gets up on the can. They have the big 1-2 on the roof of the camper. And that's the only place, I don't know if you noticed it, but I saw an awkward cut, and it still could be explained, but if I'd been in post, I would have cleaned this up. They've had the floor shot, or the handheld shot from the ground, for a while they're fighting on top of the Winnebago. And then suddenly Mark gets a rear naked choke on Jay, and they cut to another camera that's already on the roof of the camper, right up on him. And and I even had to go back and watch it, and a case could be made, because the shot that they had, the other cameraman could have actually gotten up on the top of the camper and we wouldn't have seen him, because you're trying not to see the camera people. That's television. But it was a little abrupt. Did you notice it? Where they were just there.
I noticed it, yes.
I would have preferred to see, and part of this might be, I'm trying to visualize this poor cameraman, because the only way up there legitimately was that fucking ladder. I'm trying to visualize the cameraman carrying a goddamn $20,000 camera and climbing that leaned up ladder on top of a Winnebago. But I'd like to have seen the camera slowly peek over the edge at the top of the ladder and come in that way. But anyway, then Jay threw Mark off the top of the camper onto a canvas covering something, probably boxes, but we didn't see them.
That was the only part I really didn't like, just because, to be consistent, what did he throw them on? It was just stuff. There had to be something. It just was too convenient that was there.
I get where you're coming from, but at least we didn't see the shit pop out from underneath the and I say canvas, a tarpaulin.
Yeah.
We're trying to, but you have those on farms, leaned up next to the lean-tos, whatever the fuck. But I'll go with that. Anyway, he took a bump. Here's what I didn't like about it, and it was out of Ring of Honor Wrestling's control. They're doing all this violent shit every 90 seconds. They have to flash up the constant warning, "Do not try this at home. This is experienced professional. You could be killed," or whatever, because Sinclair's goddamn nervous. Somebody's going to get thrown off the roof of the chicken coop. But anyway, after he got thrown off the roof of the Winnebago, Mark sold big again, and Jay grabs him and drags him to the truck and throws him in the back of the truck, tells the cameraman, "Get in with me." And they get in the truck, and he drives off to throw him in the fucking chicken shed, in the compost shed. And this is what I liked about it, because the actual drive time to where they were going was 30 seconds. And so it wasn't like a cut. He just drove him down to the fucking compost shed, and Jay gets out, and Mark's out of the back of the truck. Well, obviously, because we haven't seen him for 30 seconds, and he didn't even slam the fucking tailgate. But then Mark dives back in and makes a big comeback, making some more of his deranged fucking noises, and chokes him with a bull rope that's laying there. And then, one other thing, and this was a funny line, but he delivered it well. Mark pulls a fucking table out of the back of the pickup truck. It goes, "How convenient." Which, of course, they had to take a little wink and a nod at it. He crowned Jay with a road sign. He put him on the table, used a plastic bucket as a step stool to climb up into a tree to get on the roof of the compost shed, and you know he's been doing that for 20 years. Because how else would he know the exact way to climb that tree? And then he splashes Jay through the table off the top of the roof of the compost shed, and they go to the break. And either what, are they fucking dead? And you come back, and they're still laying there without moving. And it was so peaceful. They're in the middle of all this wreckage, and they're not moving. And the birds are chirping, cheep, cheep, cheep. You hear the fucking wildlife. And then Papa Briscoe comes over and says, are y'all good yet? Are you done? He helps them both up. They're both selling big. I mean, it takes like a minute or two, but now Papa Briscoe's the fucking center of attention. And he tells him, he said, we got to finish this. Y'all are the greatest tag team in the world. We got to work this out. And he's dragging them both, because he's big enough to do it, back into the shed. And he said, get it out of your system. Do what you need to do, right? He gets them back in the shed, rolls them in the ring. And this is where every other cinematic match has to have the big bump and the big fucking finish and the most preposterous thing off the roof of the goddamn whatever, or off the roof of the cage, as it may be. Instead, he rolls them in the ring in the shed. They stand back up finally. They start slugging each other. Then they start even good-looking forearms, and you can hear Landon, they're potatoing each other, down to their knees. And then finally, Mark staggers back and comes with a big clothesline, and both of them go down. And Papa Briscoe looks at him and says, are you good yet? And they both go, we're good. That was the finish, a big clothesline. It was all they had. Nobody won. They just beat the shit out of each other. And then Papa Briscoe says, that's it. About time. Get back to business, being the best damn tag team in the world. But first, clean this shit up. And he walks off and leaves them laying there. And that's it. It was fucking brilliant. It was fucking brilliant. No spooky music. No commentary. No jokes being told out of context. Only funny things that are funny in the organic way that these two fucking maniacs say shit. No ridiculous stunts that they couldn't recover from. Nobody got their head caved in with a shovel. Nobody was buried alive by a steamroller. No, it was their property, their vehicles. It's really their family. There was nothing set up for this past, we're going to bring cameras and do this here on our farm. And that's the best part about it. This is as close to legitimate as you can possibly make something like this. That's why I liked it. What else do you think?
I thought it was really good. I mentioned the one spot I didn't like and the reason why, but they're captivating. I just wish, because I saw some of the other parts of the show, and it's still an empty arena, and it's still dark, and I'm not trying to take anything away, because when we watched them during the pandemic, Ring of Honor did one of the better jobs of any promotion out there.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'd like to see something really compelling with the Briscoes now. Like, I'd love to come back and see them in a good feud with someone now. I'm I'm invested and interested now. Let's see what happens.
And I'm not sure when they're getting people back in the buildings, but I assume it's going to be, they've probably taped well in advance, but it's going to be sometime upcoming in summer or fall. And that's the reason why they did such a good job in the pandemic is because they were selling athletic contests, especially that's when they had the pure wrestling tournament and the pure rules matches. They were prominently featured because you can't work gaga in an empty building. And unfortunately, a lot of the other promotions learned that the hard way. But you can, the WWF should have been the first one to learn when Charlotte and Ripley had the match at WrestleMania, because they were the only ones that just concentrated on let's make them feel this since there's nobody here. But athletic contests and the announcing, Caprice Coleman and Ian Riccoboni, were the most legitimate sports-like announced team because they were calling something that wasn't preposterous and especially in front of an empty building. So they try to close up the loopholes in the logic. They're not going for entertainment for the sake of entertainment, but for you to be entertained by the product without prostituting it, which is what you're supposed to do for any kind of long-term success anyway. So anyway, if anybody wants to know, will Cornette like a cinematic match? Well, this is the one I like. So if you want to watch it and yell at me, feel free, go ahead. I don't care.
Well, you don't care about that, but do you care about manscaping?
I'll tell you what, Brian, have you ever drawn a string of barbed wire across your crotch? Have you ever encircled your ball sack in thumbtacks?
No.
Well, I'll tell you what, that's what it was like for so many years, for so many of us, trying to keep the crops trimmed, trying to keep the undergrowth from taking over. It was nicking and cutting and cutting and nicking. And all of those things are horrible, but especially when you're doing it around Mr. Johnson and the twins. So with Manscaped, they have taken these precarious and jeopardizing positions and smoothed them out. And right now, have we talked about this? A new product. We've talked about many times the Lawnmower 3.0 and then the new Lawnmower 4.0. But right now, the Ultra Smooth Package, the specialized groin shaving kit to help you buff, protect, and smooth your most precious areas. The Crop Shaver, the Crop Exfoliator, and the Crop Gel all help out. The Crop Exfoliator is infused with ingredients that can soothe, clear, and keep the skin on and around your pubic area feeling refreshed, reduces the risk of ingrown hairs. The Crop Gel is a unique clear shaving gel just for the groin because you do not want to obfuscate and obscure your vision when you've got sharp implements in that area. And the Crop Shaver, designed for shaving the groinal area with confidence. And you always need confidence when you're dealing with your groinal area. 3 precision blades, including extra wide lubricating strips. Because for one thing, you want to make sure that things are slicker than cum on a gold tooth down there when you're shaving. And it's also got the pivoting head. And all the Cult of Cornette members are fans of pivoting head. So, folks, right now, you know what you got to do and what you got to get. The Ultra Smooth Package from Manscaped. Go to manscaped.com/JCE to get 20% off and free shipping. 20% off and free shipping on the Ultra Smooth Package at manscaped.com/JCE. Smooth it out, fellas.
All right, Jim. Well, let's keep things smooth here on the air. And we have a series of questions that several people have sent in about a recent interview that the artist formerly known as Lana, CJ Perry, did on Chris Jericho's little show.
Has she finally spilled some tea?
If this is the spilling of the tea, I'm not sure what to think about said tea. Perhaps it's chamomile tea. Well, let's get some of these questions. Jim, this one sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com by Daniel Elder. Just listening to Chris Jericho's show with Lana, she talks a little bit about how when she was in storyline with Dolph Ziggler and a photo of her marriage to Rusev got out, she and Jericho laugh at the idea of how that meant she was punished and kept off TV for 3 months. Jericho particularly thinks it's a joke. What are Jim's thoughts on punishing somebody with no screen time due to something that happened in quote-unquote real life?
Well, what are they laughing about? They're laughing about that she got punished because she's supposed to be married or involved with one person on television and she starts broadcasting her wedding pictures? What kind of an idiot would do that to begin with? Of course she got punished. You're supposed to be with so-and-so on television, but instead you just got married to such and such on your goddamn social media. Keep your private shit private. So I assume, yes, they did. But why were they laughing about it? She didn't learn anything from that?
I guess the idea that the office would have a problem with that, which I have to admit, this is one of the situations where I think the office would have a legitimate reason to be upset if they're doing everything on TV
yes.
And all of a sudden you just expose that it's all bullshit. even though it is professional wrestling.
Well, but of course, the office also had her drop her Russian accent. If it had been up to me, if she came in as Russian, she was going to be Russian for the rest of her fucking life. Because that just tells you again that this person is a phony. A big fat phony. You're a phony. A big fat phony. If somebody comes in talking like they're Russian and then suddenly is talking like they're from fucking Pittsburgh, that's stupid. If they didn't want her to be Russian anymore, they should have just shipped her off somewhere and then brought her back in a couple years with different color hair and nobody'd remember. But anyway, I mean, how bright can she be? Right? How bright can she be? I saw on somebody tweeted that she wants wherever she works from here on out. What? Go ahead. Am I jumping in?
You're jumping in. Let me go to the next question from James in Vegas. Recently, in an interview, Lana stated she would only go back to wrestling if she had a no-cut clause in her contract, meaning she couldn't be released.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of this being in anyone's contract? Is this realistic? What are Jim's thoughts?
Well, yes, in some cases in the past, there have been specific contracts. You're going to pay me this money. You don't have to use me, but you're going to pay me this money for this period of time. You can't get out of it. But for fucking Lana? I mean, at first I didn't hear it exactly right. When she said the no-cut contract, I didn't hear it right. And I thought, well, how can she have a contract where she's not even a part of it? But then I heard it was no cut. And I see. No, she's delusional. She's not important enough. What promotion is going to say, oh my God, we have to have Lana or the former Lana, and to get this highly valued individual, we're going to sign her to a contract that we can't get rid of her no matter how bad she turns out to be until the end of the contract. No, that's only for major money drawing box office attractions, of which we're not talking about here. I don't. This is another one, and I know she's married to Bluto, and he thinks this way too, because we've established most of his career has been spent in the WWE system. They think that they are actors working for a movie studio in major parts in television or whatever. They aren't in the wrestling business mentally. They don't know what the wrestling business is mentally. And they don't know how that they figure into it because they don't understand the business they're even in. And whether it's, just standing back waiting to be told by the script writers or whatever the case, how in the world does she think she's valuable enough for what other promotion besides her husband's current place of employment would sign her up at all? To do what? And then not be cut? I ask you.
I don't have an answer to that, but one more question about Lana's recent interview. This one sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Billy. Lana was recently interviewed on Jericho's show. Apparently during last year's Survivor Series, Roman Reigns and Nia Jax got into an argument backstage because Jax was supposed to put Lana through a table, a running gag they had been doing for weeks leading up to this event, and Roman Reigns nixed the spot because there was a table spot planned for the main event with him, and he didn't want another table spot. Would love to get your thoughts on this, considering it's in line with your views of ring and crowd psychology related to table spots.
Yes, as a matter of fact, hold on here, wait a minute. Let me find a good one here. To Roman Reigns, because now we know that somebody gets it. And of course, his involvement with Paul Heyman, and he coming from a wrestling family, and him being the main event guy, and the guy that's supposed to be carrying the company, and is going to get shit on by a lot of people internally if he doesn't carry it properly. He takes his shit seriously. And no, he's not going to have the girls out there breaking a fucking table before his main event world championship match where they're going to break a fucking table. And he smoothed that shit out and shut it down real quick, and I'm proud of him for it.
And that, of course, is one of the big problems at AEW, where people do the same thing in multiple segments on the same show.
Yeah, and what was Lana butthurt and offended that they didn't get to break a table too? Because everybody gets to participate and break tables and use ladders and things. She actually thought there was something wrong with that action.
I don't know,
Hey,
because I didn't
we were
hear
the
it.
girls' match, and we couldn't do the fucking table spot because the main event world championship match was going to use it.
To be fair, we don't know if she was saying she had a problem with it. She was just, from what we read here, saying that it happened.
Well, and why was Nia Jax arguing? Just because she's in the family, she thinks she can argue with Roman Reigns, the world champion, on a bone of contention about what's going to be happening in the matches.
For someone who doesn't generate, like, someone who isn't a money draw, for someone who's not going to ever be a main eventer, for someone who doesn't matter on the show, Nia Jax seems to really be very opinionated from everything I've read and heard.
My hole!
Well, Jim, I lied. One last question on Lana. This one just came in. This one sent to CornyDriveThru.
Breaking question.
CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Joel in New Zealand. What are your thoughts on Alana recently being on Jericho's show, calling herself just an actress playing a part in WWE?
There you go. Was I psychic? That's what she thinks she is. She thinks she's an actress playing a part on a television show. And that's what Bluto thinks he is. Really, an actress. My employer gave me a role to play. Remember that line? That's what these fucking jackoffs, male and female alike, think they are these days in the wrestling business. Actors playing parts. And that's why they all fucking suck. And the only ones that don't suck are the ones that realize they're not actors playing parts, like the Briscoes. And I make these comments and state this case and proffer this theory, and then out of their own chicken lips, they go out and they admit it. Yeah, I'm an actress playing a part. Well, you're not doing it very well, because this is not a place for actresses or actors playing parts, chickadee. Run on back home and cook Bluto some goulash.
Our next question, Jim, is one that many people have sent in. I'll read one for everyone. What are your thoughts on Darby Allin appearing in the film Jackass 4?
Wait a minute. Hold on here. Wait a minute. Oh, my God. How about this one? I don't know which show it was in, but I guarantee if John Fell in Baltimore probably knows, unless he was brain damaged in that last tumble and he's lost his memory. But what did I say about a year ago when Darby, was he in a body bag, and was that when he fell off a shelf? Or whatever, being drugged behind something? I said, what is this, fucking Jackass? And that, I know it's a great crossover for this audience, because they like to watch stupid people do dangerous shit that will potentially hurt them for apparently no reason whatsoever. And not even in a really talented performing kind of way, like the death-defying acrobats that, nail their trick with only a slim, razor-thin margin of error, but just like the sloppy fucks that throw bowling balls at each other's crotches off the roof. And now he's going to be in one of them. I've had the same opinion before Jackass was even a thing in wrestling. I've had the same opinion of Jackass. I've always thought it was a stupid show with a bunch of stupid people in it. And honestly, I never even watched it because it wasn't as entertaining stupid as, to me, ridiculousness. With all that Rob Dyrdek, the skateboard fellow. They get in and out with their clips, and it's not all stupid people doing stupid things. Sometimes it's accidents. Sometimes it's just funny clips or whatever. But I'm entertained by watching stupid people doing stupid shit to hurt themselves that they should have known they shouldn't be doing. But I don't know if I want to if I'm Tony Khan, oh God, perish that thought. If I want to make one of my baby faces be a really stupid person. I don't know. So I see where the tie-in is, but it's a joke program, and I don't know why people think that it's good. Does that answer the question?
I guess so. I think it's a good move because, I have liked the Jackass movies and the show in the past. There are some segments I don't like, but
You like that shit.
by and large, it's enjoyable because they're morons. I like laughing at morons sometimes. I remember hearing about Jackass before it debuted because Dennis and Mark Carluzzo were driving around near them in, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and they saw like Bam Margera at the time, I think, dressed in like a Santa Claus outfit, like doing stunts. And they couldn't believe it. Like, what the fuck is this? And then they saw it on TV and they're like, wait a minute. But I remember Dennis and Mark telling me they saw something before it debuted. But I think it's a good move because it's going to get attention. It's the right audience to put Darby Allin in front of. I mean, it makes perfect sense. It's probably...
Remember, are you old enough to remember when I was a kid, the one thought that I always had in my mind was trying not to do stupid shit in front of people who would laugh at me for it.
Of course.
When did that get reversed? Where now people try to do stupid shit in front of people for them to laugh at them for it?
See, I don't know, because like I said, I've liked stuff on that show and there's other stuff I haven't liked.
But I mean, these people, you like to sit back and watch stupid people, but these are people who like to be laughed at for doing stupid shit in front of witnesses.
That's what I don't understand, because before Jackass was a TV show, my cousin Alex was getting tapes of CKY, Can't Kill Yourself. That was like Bam and those guys doing stuff. And I never understood, like one of the guys would eat a bunch of X-Lax and go for a run, and you just see him shitting. And it's like, first of all, I don't understand why this is appealing to watch, but second of all, why does he want to do this? And all of his friends are just laughing at him and filming him, and he's okay. This grown adult being caught on tape shitting all over himself.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Or remember Darby Allin had a video on one of the shows that he and his friends, it was either on a show or it was a video they did that was out there on social media somewhere where, okay, the loser has to get sprayed in the face with mace. What? No, he's going to stand there and get sprayed in the face on purpose. No. And the fucking thing with they're all of these Jackass people are obsessed with mangling and mutilating their dicks. When I was that age, I could write you just off the top of my head a list of 50 to 75 different things that I would rather do with my dick than hit it in the head with a ball-peen hammer. Or throw something at it, or stand there while somebody kicked me in it. That's what I'm like, no. And if somebody had ever suggested same aforesaid actions to me, I would have looked at them like they had steaming turds hanging out of their mouth.
But to that point, and I understand why you wouldn't like it, do you think it's a good idea, it's a good move to have Darby Allin in that movie? Because I do. What do you think?
Well, yeah, I said a minute ago, I see where the tie-in comes in, and I guess for the people who like that kind of thing, that will make him more popular with those kind of people.
You were talking before about shows you watch. I don't know why it made me think of it, but I've never asked you, so I'll ask you here on the air. One of my favorite shows, a show that literally brings me to tears laughing almost every time I watch it. Have you ever watched Impractical Jokers?
I have seen a few of them. And honestly, I think they're ribbing each other worse than they're ribbing the people.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing. That's the whole thing.
Because the gimmick is they have the IFB in the ear, so the chosen victim has to go in and say or do anything that they're told to in this public place without people know that they're being wired and told to do these things or whatever. And yeah, I wouldn't do that because I would be afraid that I would come across somebody like me in the store and there'd be a situation before it was found out.
Yeah, no, there have been a few. There was one era in a pizza place and some guy walked in. It's just like, I'll kill everybody in here. And it's on TV. They aired it. But that is, I think, the funniest show on TV. I've never laughed to the extent I laugh at that show to any other show. That is the funniest.
Now, wait a minute.
Show.
You laugh good on our shows.
To the extent, I mean, I have been.
Are you just doing the Ed McMahon laugh?
No,
you're correct, sir.
You're funny. You're just no, Q or Sal or Murr.
I'm
Joe.
just no impractical joker.
That's right. You're a practical joker.
Yeah. Well, that's impractical.
That's right. That's right. Well, you may want to watch TV. You may want to listen to music, whatever it may be. The best thing to do is to have the right earbuds in your ears.
Well, goddamn, you just served that one up to me like shit on a plate. Folks, I'll tell you this right now. Whether Brian Last wants to build this thing up or not, these Raycon earbuds, they're badass. I'm going to tell you that right now. They're tiny so that they can be hidden in your ears. They're wireless. You don't have stems and antenna hanging out of you don't look like my favorite Martian. They look great and they feel even better and they sound fantastic. You get the crisp, powerful beats at half the price of the other premium audio brands. A pair of Raycon wireless earbuds in your ears can make all the difference with cool colors, customizable gel tips, so you get a comfortable in-ear fit. The last thing you want is your ear holes being gaped by a protrusionous set of earbuds that are not fit for your ergonomically designed ears. Raycons are built to go wherever you go. Quick and seamless Bluetooth pairing. If you pair them up with more than one Bluetooth, does it then make it Bluetooth or is it still Bluetooth pairing?
It's Bluetooth. There are no Bluetooth.
There are no Bluetooth. Well, in some places in West Virginia, but nevertheless, seamless Bluetooth pairing and a compact charging case. 24-hour battery life. Where are you going to take them that you are even going to use 24 hours of battery life, for heaven's sake? For example, my Aunt Tilly, the doctor told her several years ago she needed to get in better shape. She needed to start walking at least a mile a day. She took the Raycon earbuds. By the time the fucking batteries were dead, she didn't know where she was. Anyway, listen up right now, folks. If you haven't been already, Raycon is offering 15% off all their products, everything on the site, for my listeners right here on Brian's show. And here's what you got to do to get it. Go to BuyRaycon, that's BuyRaycon, buyraycon.com/JCE, 15% off your entire Raycon order. That's if you buy a pair and then buy a spare, 15% off everything. Buyraycon.com/JCE. And it's not blue teeth, it's Bluetooth.
Bluetooth. That's right. Well, Jim, one question I'm going to ask you, because a lot of people have sent it in. I don't have a firm question here, and I'm not. I got to be honest. I haven't watched the video, but
you're just mumbling and just extrapolating on what might be going on.
Have you seen anything about this gender reveal inside a wrestling ring, which appears to be in someone's front yard?
Yes, I did. I saw the freeze frame on Twitter and saw that it was a gender reveal wrestling party and decided not to go any further because it was the holiday weekend. I didn't want to make myself mad.
All right, we're in the same boat. Let's move on to the next question.
There you go.
Our next question sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Name Redacted.
Name Redacted?
That's right. He sent a link. I have not read this. Let's see. This link is to an archive post from Chris Jericho. It is him responding to online critics of his match from King of the Ring 2002. I would love you to read this to Mr. James Cornette so that we may hear his thoughts.
Now, this is not recent. This is from that time period.
Let me see. Is there a date?
He said archived or whatever.
June 24th, 2002. It's on the Wayback Machine, which archives classic website material.
Well, that's good to know. So, Mr. Peabody, go ahead and read this thing.
June 24th, 2002. Let's see if this rings familiar with modern-day Chris Jericho. The headline, Hello, Jagoffs. All right, I've had it. You want a war? Now you've got one. I'm suffering from a bout of insomnia, so I decided to go on the web and check out the reviews of the King of the Ring from tonight, more specifically on the PW Torch website. After reading what all of you smarks, and believe me, you are all still marks, had to say about my match in the show, I am furious. Everybody has the right to...
Wait a minute, this is the night of the King of the Ring.
The night of the King of the Ring.
He's in his hotel room looking up his reviews on the websites for people to put his match over. Instead of, I don't know, eating and sleeping?
He wants people to validate his high opinions of himself. But anyway, we continue. Everybody has the right to an opinion, and here's mine. I'm sick of all you holier-than-thou pompous jackasses. That's it. That's all. Baby goes to sleep now.
What the?
What?
Baby goes to sleep now.
I had one of my best matches of the year tonight with RVD.
Wait a minute, I thought he was going to sleep. There's more?
There's more. Baby goes to sleep is not the closer. Isn't that something? Like wrestling nowadays, you do the finisher, then you kick out and keep going for another 5 paragraphs.
Go another 10 minutes.
The match of the year tonight with Rob Van Dam featured 20 minutes of tremendous action, innovative false finishes.
Wait a minute now. The match of all of the matches in his career that he's going ballistic on to people who knocked it is with Rob Van Dam.
That's right.
He's gone that deep. They can't praise his match with Steve Austin, his match with The Rock, or his match. He's got to go that deep in the catalog and be upset because they didn't like his match with Rob Van Dam. Was it a good match? I don't remember ever seeing it.
To be fair, I don't recall the match, but it was fresh on his mind. Again, this is the night of the pay-per-view event, so...
Yes, when I guess room service was closed.
But let me go back to what he said here. The match featured 20 minutes of tremendous action, innovative false finishes, and an absolutely tremendous crowd. It was everything I could have asked for in a match, and was, in my opinion, an off-the-charts performance from RVD and myself, match of the year caliber. I was so excited about the contest, and I can humbly state that we stole the show. The crowd was so into it that they were burned out after we went on quiet for the next 3 or 4 matches.
Wow.
They ate up every move from start to finish.
So they killed the crowd, is what he's saying.
That is what he's saying here. They ate up every move from start to finish and enjoyed the hell out of it. But now I read the opinions of some of you. Many of you state that the match was very good or excellent. I agree. But many others are saying that the match was slow and predictable, with one jackass even saying it was one of the worst matches of my career. How could you honestly say that? What the hell do you people want? What is it that you are looking for? We go out there and bust our asses to entertain you, and if the Columbus fans were quiet, they sure as hell weren't during my match. They were entertained. And your thoughts were that bad? Well, if you didn't like my match tonight, then you were out of luck if you're a Jericho fan, because it was the best you're gonna get, jerky. That was CJ at his finest. Oh my God, this is how he writes about himself.
Oh my God, he's talking in the third person now about himself.
Wrestling at its finest. A great 4.5-star performance with a tremendous build, a great crowd, and an awesome match. If you didn't like it, then stop watching me and stop watching the WWE and take up bowling, because you will never like anything we give you. Boy, it's that again. If you don't like this, you're not a fan. If you don't like this, stop watching.
At least he didn't say, go fuck your ass.
I'm the first one to admit when my performance is not up to snuff.
He's continuing.
Or something was bad, and I'm the most self-critical person on the WWE roster. But tonight's performance was me at my finest. Didn't like it? Then get the F out, and good riddance to you. For all of you that enjoyed my match, I say thanks. For those that didn't...
He's not even trying to be a heel, because he's sucking up to the people who liked it instead of saying, yeah, because I'm great. He's not being a heel. He's being a whiny baby.
For those that didn't like it, I don't care, because I'm through with you. I'm now finished with the internet, and I'm finished with this site, because I hate what you marks are doing. You've spoiled it for me. Your negativity is ridiculous. You all come off like a bunch of bitter know-it-alls who won't be happy with anything we give you. Nothing is ever good enough, and quite frankly, I'm over it. You are the same people that are saying that Attack of the Clones is boring, analyzing every little detail instead of allowing yourselves to be entertained by its magic.
It appears he's put some thought into this.
Yeah, by the way, I wouldn't be holding up Attack of the Clones as the comparison to a great piece of art that your match is. That was...
I haven't seen it, to be honest.
It seems that some of you wish the wrestling business would dry up and die, because some of you dislike everything we do. Is it always good? No, but we are killing ourselves to try and entertain you, and if you don't respect that, then kiss my ass. I want the business to be around forever, and I'm doing my part to keep it great, and I did that tonight no matter what any of you think. A lot of the boys pandered to you on their website, asking for your input and your thoughts, and I used to be one of them. Guess what? I'm not anymore. Think what you want. I don't care. Do what you want. I don't care. Respond how you want to as well, because I won't be reading. I don't give a damn about what you think anymore. One of the best wrestlers in the world and one of the performers in the best match of the night and match of the year candidate from King of the Ring, Chris Jericho. That's how he signed it.
Wow.
Let me read that sign off one more time because it was so clunky. I almost fucked it up. Instead of sincerely or best wishes, one of the best wrestlers in the world and one of the performers in the best match of the night and match of the year candidate from King of the Ring, Chris Jericho.
Woo! Go to bed. What was it? Go to bed, baby. Baby's going to bed. Looks like baby needs to sleep it off.
Baby goes to sleep now.
Baby goes to sleep now. Okay, what? Do you have any magic website that you can pop up a review of that match from the time to see what anybody said about it, so we have something to go on? Because this is it's not a Hogan and Andre in my memory, or Flair and Steamboat.
I will look for a moment to see if I can find it. Like I said, I don't remember the match or any reviews of it, but let me see what I can find.
King of the Ring 2002, eh? Well, obviously this was a match that literally revolutionized the entire in-ring performance aspect of professional wrestling, something that nobody who ever saw it could possibly ever put out of their mind, something that had such an impact on some people that they weren't able to fully process even the greatness that they were beholding in front of their eyes from the greatest wrestler in the history of the world and the perpetrator of the best match of all time at King of the Ring. Baby's going to sleep. Have you found anything?
I found something. Again, I don't know what this review is. It's from 2002 from 411 Mania. But it's not really criticizing the match. It's literally just listing everything that happened. It was the opening match, according to this.
Oh.
It's listing everything that happened.
So there was no place to go but down after that match. Is what the people. It was the opening match, but people were remarkably quiet for the next several matches.
Boy, I'll tell you, the other thing is just how similar he is there to what he is now.
And we just weren't noticing all those years because he kept getting his ego fed on a regular basis.
Inability to accept any criticism. Clearly thinks everything he does is much better than anyone else thinks it is. Very high opinion of himself at high points and low points of his career. What a delusional guy. What a delusion. And again, just like the whole Jim Cornette's irrelevant thing, so I have to write it here. I don't care what any of you people think, so let me write everything I think about this.
Oh, my God.
What a silly guy. I have to say, what a fucking silly, silly guy. He's ranking his own matches. It was a 4.5-star match. Says the guy in the match.
Well, now, what does Uncle Dave say? Do we have Uncle Dave's opinion on this contest?
I don't have Dave's review on it, but...
Well, somebody get back to us on that.
Find me the last time Dave has written anything negative about Chris Jericho.
Well, now, that was 20 years ago. I was before he was on any of the payrolls, so...
Find me the last time Dave has written anything negative about any of the bad shit Chris Jericho has done now or then. But we have a show to continue with. So we will move on from here. Let me find another question. Let's go to this one. Sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Charlie in Starkville, Mississippi.
I should have known.
Hi, Jim. I would like to get your thoughts on AEW's Santana filing for trademarks on the term Born Nasty and Mike Santana. Does Born Nasty or Mike Santana pass the name test?
Well, I mean, is Born Nasty, is that going to be are they thinking about, are they gone from Proud and Powerful to Born Nasty? He certainly wouldn't be using that as a singular wrestling name for himself, since everybody already knows he's Santana. Mike Santana doesn't have the ring that Carlos Santana has to it. I don't know whether Mike Santana's a guy standing on the corner. I don't know.
Do you think someone like Santana, who we've said, I guess if you had to pick one guy in Santana Ortiz to break out and be a single, it would be him because he has size, he has a good promo, he seems more serious in the ring, more capable in the ring. If you get to that point where you're ready to make him a single, what do? Do you roll with him as Santana, or you want him to have a full name?
Well, you want him to have a name if he's going to be a single, because it's easier to disguise it. We don't know right now what either one of their first names are. It's Santana and Ortiz, Proud and Powerful, or, whatever team name they've been using, LAX before. But if it's a single, you just, there's Santana. But Mike, I mean, I would have thought something maybe a little more of a Hispanic flavor and something that would roll off the tongue. But yeah, I don't know what the fascination is that Vince has got these days, or whoever makes this call in the WWE has these days, with just giving a guy one name. Sometimes they get it back, sometimes they never do. The Riddle thing, or Buddy, or what am I? I don't know where that's come from, but normally in the previous years in the WWE, the only time a guy would have one name is if he was the something, the Undertaker. But just one Christian name like Cher or Liberace, that's just goofy.
Who were the first guys in the business to do that? There was Beauregard. Who else would have just been one name?
Oh, God. I mean, we could probably go back in the 40s in some of those old programs and look, and that would be a thing, but it was
Quasimodo, yeah.
Quasimodo, the Hunchback. That's a gimmick everybody knew anyway. With Beauregard, that was like he was playing off being a pop star of some description. So there you could put it together visually when you saw the gimmick, saw the way that they were dressed, or whatever. You could put together some of those things, but there's just no reason for just a guy to be named. What was it? Was it Buddy or was it Murphy?
His name was Buddy Murphy, and they got rid of Buddy, so it was just Murphy.
Okay, well, at least he wasn't just Buddy. There's Buddy. But with Murphy, that makes no sense. Or Riddle, so I don't know where this comes from, but they don't give guys gimmicks anymore. They just give them goofy names and an outfit to wear. There's really nothing related to a gimmick about a person where you would know who they are, what they are before you see them. They're just weird names and strange outfits.
Our next question, Jim, sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Tony Farinella in Oak Lawn, Illinois. First of all, as a huge fan of the NBA Milwaukee Bucks, I think the Young Bucks should be forced to change their name. After all, the Milwaukee Bucks have been around since before the Young Bucks were even born. Can we get Stephen P. New on this? But Jim, the question, what are your memories of doing ring roasts with kayfabe commentaries? I thought it had potential, and you were on fire, but it was mostly hit or miss due to the guests and the crowd lacking a sense of humor. Could this concept work today, or has the wrestling world become too sensitive to lighthearted barbs?
Well, I don't know if it's... and this was a number of years ago, so people weren't as sensitive, but the problem is I did a ring roast with kayfabe commentaries, and I did a roast over in the Carolinas at WrestleCade. I've done 2 or 3 of them roasting me, right? And the drawback that I found is that the boys didn't get the concept of the roast. And at least at one of them, really didn't do anything but say nice shit about me. I don't know whether it was from fear of reprisal or what the fuck, but they didn't get the concept of the roast, really. And then also sometimes the guys that are chosen for a roast because of their relationship or longtime friendship or rivalry or whatever case may be with the guest of honor, so to speak, they may not be the most entertaining stand-up comics. Because there's entertaining guys in wrestling, but you might have to sometimes find somebody that has absolutely no connection to the subject whatsoever to get a really good. So, as he mentioned, and I must honestly plead guilty to. I was an entertaining goddamn motherfucker at all those roasts, but I didn't have a lot to come back on because a lot of the guys didn't get the. And you're asking wrestlers to be stand-up comics, and every once in a while you can find one that does a good job, and otherwise it's a little challenging. As you will be totally unsurprised to know, I prepared fucking assiduously and had some fucking skewers for everybody that I knew was going to be there. And actually, Sunny was supposed to be at the one in North Carolina, and she didn't show up and wasn't even incarcerated or anywhere. She just didn't make it. And I took offense, so I used all the jokes I had for her on the crowd anyway. Just if she was here, I would mention this. But everybody else, I don't think, and I had my notes, but I don't think everybody else prepared quite to that level, and I don't think they all knew what they were getting into. So it's a hit and miss proposition. Just like I said, my opening line was, they told me this was going to be a veritable who's who of wrestling. I found out it's a who's that of wrestling. I wish somebody'd hit me in the head so I could see some stars. Yeah, all right. That was an Ed McMahon laugh. Anyway.
Well, Jim, let's go to our next question, and this concerns someone who is often compared to you, actually. Quentin Tarantino. A lot of people think he's the Jim Cornette of films, and you're the Quentin Tarantino of wrestling. I've heard that before.
I've heard that, and I think part of it is due also to our very our shifty eyes.
Well, here's a question concerning some of the recent interviews he's been doing, because he's promoting a novel of his most recent film. Let's go to this question from UK Stuntman, sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com. Greetings, fellow cake eaters. Just a quick question about Judo Gene LeBell that was sparked by a statement on Joe Rogan with Quentin Tarantino. In his quasi-realistic film about Hollywood stuntmen, there's a scene where a stuntman beats up Bruce Lee. He took some heat for this, and in defense claimed that Bruce was showing the stuntmen no respect and beating them up on purpose during the filming of The Green Hornet. So they decided to send an extra stuntman to let Bruce know how to behave, and the man's name was Gene LeBell.
Oh, I've got to call some shenanigans already.
Is this Judo Gene that they are referring to? And I will say Quentin has received a little bit of pushback from people for his depiction of Bruce Lee in the film, including from Bruce Lee's daughter. He has defended the way he depicted Bruce in the film, with the exception of saying that he understands why the daughter is upset, but this apparently came up, Judo Gene and Bruce Lee.
Okay, you can chime in on this after I finish taking the piss out of it for a second, but besides the fact that in any research or reading that I've done on Bruce Lee, he never took liberties with the stunt people. He was more of a person who identified with the guys underneath than he was with the main events, the producers. He was always fighting with the studios and the producers and people, but he always respected co-workers, stuntmen. Secondly, Brian, if there had ever been any type of legitimate conflict between Bruce Lee and Judo Gene LeBell, how the fuck was it hidden all this time? Not from the movie community, but from the wrestling community. Because I think probably the only thing that Gene LeBell may have been better at than stretching people was talking about stretching people. Is that the first thing that you thought that glanced over your mind when you heard this? There has never been any other relation of any story of a conflict between Gene LeBell and Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee has never been, the story's never been told that anybody handed him his ass on a movie set. From all of the Bruce Lee books and the coverage, and from the wrestling side, we would know it. Because some fucking California fan from those days, or Rock Rims would have uncovered it. No, I don't believe that for a second. Do you?
Well, first of all, let me just say, I believe Judo Gene has put Bruce Lee over. Like, he's never said anything bad about him. He said he was the best martial artist. I have a quote right here. The best martial artist of his time.
Well, there you go.
The other thing is, there is a story, and I don't think there would be confusion because of the time difference. And there is debate about this. There are various YouTube videos with people talking about it. The story goes, and there is an element of truth somewhere in here, that Gene LeBell choked out Steven Seagal, who pissed his pants.
I remember hearing that.
Steven Seagal denies the whole thing. Other people say they were playfully doing some stuff. Other people say there was no peeing of the pants. Something happened, no one knows what, but I don't know if there's any confusion with the Bruce Lee story and that story, though.
I know. I don't see how you could... Okay, was the story then that he choked out Bruce Lee and made him piss his pants?
I haven't seen the film yet. I've been waiting to, actually.
What was Steven Seagal taking liberties with the job guys on set?
Well, he's kind of known for that. Steven Seagal's known for being one of the biggest dickheads, like, of all time. Like,
and since he quit making movies, he's actually gained enough weight to where he is indeed the biggest dickhead, right, of all time.
Yeah, he makes all sorts of bizarre statements and claims, and everyone hates him. And, you know, I like some of his early films, but then you hear like he was harassing every woman, and he was giving the stunt guys problems, and he would abuse people with his Aikido and show people what he could do. I really don't know what to think. And then you look at him now, and he's got fake hair, and he's like a big star in Russia. I don't know what to think.
But yeah, I mean, is it possible that Tarantino's, conflating Steven Seagal and Bruce Lee? It seemed for a guy it seems as sharp as Tarantino, who's been around Hollywood for so long, that seems like a mistake that you wouldn't be able to make.
It also seems like it could be the kind of story you would hear if you're around Hollywood for a long time. A Gene LeBell story. What would be the ultimate Gene LeBell story? He beat up Bruce Lee.
Yeah, he beat up Bruce Lee. I think the chances of it actually being legitimate are, as Gorilla used to say, highly unlikely.
Well, Jim, maybe Bruce Lee's family and fans will hear about this and say, this isn't right. This didn't happen. Let's get an affidavit from Judo Gene. Let's get the truth out there. Let's
take them to court.
That's right.
Well, I know who they could get to represent them. The man that represents not only the little guy, Mr. Everyman, the average American, but also the major stars. He goes from the outhouse to the penthouse and back again with fluidity. None other than this man.
Call Stephen P. News. If you need to sue. An outlaw mud show or two. Those are the rest.
Yes, folks, in the annals of attorneys, in the pantheon of prosecutors, in the list of lawyers, there is only one that ranks right up there with the greats like Clarence Darrow and Johnny Cochran and Algonquin J. Calhoun, and that man is the irreverent and incomparable Stephen P. New at newlawoffice.com, 888-692-8084. I can never forget that number. It's seared into my brain. And folks, as you can go to newlawoffice.com, you can see the plethora of cases that are being handled now by Stephen P. New and his beautiful partner in legal properties now, Amanda Taylor, New Taylor and Associates. They're just tearing things up over there in West Virginia, including the Veterans Administration hospital, doctor that assaulted people, including the defective earplugs given to our service members, including the poisoned water and atmosphere around Minden, West Virginia, and in addition to getting these multi-million-dollar judgments and even $50,000 for a poor old lady that State Farm was trying to screw. She only drove her car on Sunday afternoons to go to church. He got her $50,000 and an apology. He can do the same thing for you if somebody has wronged you. And also, of course, Stephen P. New, the title sponsor of the All-Star Wrestling Bash in Beckley. Hello to our good friend Gary Damron. He doesn't owe me anything, Gary, but he owes me dinner at the Lube over there whenever I go back out in public in a few years. But anyway, Saturday, August 7th, the All-Star Wrestling Bash in Beckley at the Raleigh County Convention Center. You can get tickets at BeckleyConventionCenter.com. Jerry Lawler, Ronnie Garvin, Heath Slater, who's from right down the road there, is going to be there. Davey Richards, back in wrestling now, former Ring of Honor champion. The Heat Seekers, fine tag team, all that and more. Saturday, August 7th at the Bash and Beckley at All-Star Wrestling presents Stephen P. New, a major sponsor there. And as well, he can navigate the treacherous and shark-infested legal waters for you, as he has done for so many of other members of the cult of Cornette that we can't even count them now on both hands. I can't even count them now on both hands and both feet. I don't have enough fingers and toes for how many customers and clients that we have referred here off the program to Stephen P. New. As a matter of fact, early on, I tried to do it, count them up without using my fingers, and I stuck both hands in my pockets and got up to 11 and had to quit.
Let's get a few more questions in, and let's stay on the topic of West Virginia. This next one was sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Jay in West Virginia. In all of his run-ins with Muta and Kabuki over the years, did Jim ever get sprayed with the mist? If so, what was it like? Was it gross? Did it stink? Did it stain your clothes? Did it stain the mat? I know it was some sort of pellet/wafer that they used, but what was it made of?
All right, well, no, I never got sprayed. Fortunately, I was always a heel alongside Muta in WCW, but
Kabuki could have gotten you in world class.
I was about to say I wasn't sprayed, but I got the thrust kick from Kabuki. The big thrust kick back when nobody did that, and that was his finish.
Was it the anniversary? Was it the anniversary? Because I just saw that clip like 2 days ago.
Yes, July 4th, 1985, Tarrant County Convention Center in Fort Worth, Texas. There was 12,000 people. I believe the house was around $150,000. I'd have to check my book. And that was my final date in world class. We'd already given notice. And the midnight, we're in the Omni that night, already in Atlanta. They'd already finished, but I had been advertised for this showdown with Sunshine. They had a Texas Department of Labor and Standards was the governing body for wrestling, and they wouldn't allow intergender activity of any kind there. So we had to bill it as an exhibition instead of a fight or a match. And basically, I'd made the challenge that Sunshine, she ought to be in the kitchen rattling the pots and pans around. She's a woman. None of this Helen Reddy bullshit. She needs to know her place. And she couldn't even knock me off my feet if I gave her a free shot. And through all these interviews, somewhere or another was because I booked this. It's the one thing they actually listened to me on, and it ended up being the biggest payoff I got the whole time at 6 months I was in Dallas, after we'd already given notice and left. I would be blindfolded and stand in the ring and give Sunshine one shot to knock me off my feet. And if she couldn't do it, then I was going to take that blindfold off and I was going to walk the dog on Sunshine. I was just going to beat her within an inch of her life. And that's where I got all the lines in, like Sunshine's been on more street corners than the Dallas Times-Herald. And her real name is Virginia. They used to call her Virgin for short, but not for long. And all of that stuff. And, and pressing as much as I could being on TV in Dallas, Texas. And anyway, this was one of the feature events, believe it or not. And people reacted to it. But the deal was, I stole this from an old deal that Joe LeDuc did with referee Thomas Marlin one time in Louisville. It was the same thing. Joe LeDuc is fucking blindfolded and his hands tied behind his back and going to fight the referee. And then as soon as he gets blindfolded, somebody came in, distraction. Here comes Lawler and fucking knocks LeDuc out. And when you pop the hood and the referee's the one standing there, holy shit, we did the same thing. I'd get the hood on, and then suddenly Scott Casey, who was another of Sunshine's managerial charges, runs down and distracts Bronco Lubitsch, and Kabuki comes in the ring and gives me the sidekick, knocks me ass over tea kettle, and then Kabuki jumps out, Sunshine puts her foot on my chest, and Bronco Lubitsch turns around, 1, 2, 3. I take the fucking hood off, and it's Sunshine, and I've been knocked senseless. How the fuck did she do that? And, that was and I got $1,000 for that. That was the second biggest payoff we had in 6 months. The Texas Stadium, we got $1,150 on a $250,000 house. That's why we gave our notice. But anyway, that was so I did get kicked by Kabuki, but never misted by Muta. And whatever it did. Oh, God damn it. I guess everybody else knows everything. I don't know where a wafer or a pellet came from. It's fucking food coloring. And so it will stain your clothes, and it does stain the mat. But it's food coloring, and it's passed around in a condom tied off. And you bite down and fucking spray it. And that's where every once in a while, Kabuki and Muta got good with it, but some guys that try to do that fucking deal, they goddamn end up swallowing the shit. And there you go. And I'll tell you one thing, brother. When Kabuki blow the green, that's bad enough. But when he blow the red, shit's on. That's what Gary Hart would say.
This next question, Jim, sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Benjamin. CM Punk has been talking and replying on Twitter and was one of my favorite wrestlers. Speaking on an interview, he said, quote, "There was probably a time where I'd get mad if someone called wrestling fake. Now I call it fake all the time." I would love to hear your comments about this and if you agree.
Yes. There was not only probably a time where I would get mad. There was times I would get mad. There's times I've had to fucking fight with people. And that's what you did. And I mean, a story Terry Funk told me about his father when he was like 6 or 7 years old there. And everybody in town at that point knew who, in Amarillo, Texas, knew who Dory Funk Sr. was. And Dory's out with his wife and Dory and Junior and Terry. And Terry's like 6 or 7 years old. And he said, "I remember some guy came up and told my father wrestling was fake and he was fake. And my dad beat the shit out of that guy. I couldn't believe it. He just kicked the teetotal shit out of that guy right in that restaurant." And afterwards he said, "Dad, why'd you do this?" "I had to, son. There was no choice." That was especially in Amarillo, that was Dory Funk Sr.'s family business. That was not just his profession. That was the way that he fed his kids. And there wasn't anybody going to get up in a guy's face and call him a fake in front of the general public. In that situation, that's the only thing he could do. And fortunately, I'm sure that the Funks, as most promoters did back in those days, had a decent relationship with the local authorities. But that's what used to happen. And unfortunately, then the days went by where you couldn't just beat the shit out of some smartass for calling you a fake to your face. But you could at very least get mad and cuss. And you had some leg to stand on and little ground because nobody could prove it. Nobody knew for sure. They couldn't cite chapter and verse in the middle of a parking lot or sidewalk argument about whether wrestling was real or not with a wrestler because they didn't know anything. They couldn't give facts and figures in a situation like that. So you could get by with defending what you did, which is what everybody did. And now the guys know. The guys don't get mad. And guys who are, unfortunately, like Punk, they see this sorry state of affairs where it's a bunch of actors and actresses playing parts. And they go, well, you can't really get mad anymore because even these guys, they don't get mad at all. They call it fake themselves. They laugh about their own business being fake and bullshit. So I can get mad over that, but you can't get mad at the fans anymore. But it's a different fucking... Ask any motherfucker that Haku ever bit the nose off their face if it was worth telling him to his face that he was a fake and wrestling was bullshit. Those stories... See, here's the thing. This manner of handling things for quite a number of years worked, at least to the point where if you thought wrestling was fake, you weren't going to say it loud enough around the wrestlers. They quieted that talk down quite a bit. But the stories made the papers. Man tells wrestler he's fake, gets nose bitten off. You didn't see any stories in the newspaper. Man tells wrestler he's fake. Wrestler agrees. That's not news, even if it happened. But every time you'd see man tells wrestler he's a fake, ends up with his head up his own ass, whistling Dixie out his fucking colon. That did discourage some of that talk. It's just a different world, Brian. It's a different time now.
I can't remember the last thing CM Punk said that I haven't agreed with.
That's because he don't give a shit. He's like, you know what? We're the only two. We don't want to go back to the asylum. We didn't enjoy it the last time we were there. And we don't give a shit if we hurt people's feelings because we're telling the truth. They just can't handle it.
Yeah, I mean, every time we get a question about CM Punk, something he said every few weeks, and every time I just think to myself, this guy's the smartest guy in the business. He
speaks like he's 60 years old. He's an old soul at heart because he learned all these things, even though he came up in a generation full of jack-offs.
Well, Jim, let's get what is potentially our final question here this week.
Well, I'll be the judge of that.
Sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Elizabeth in Tasmania.
Wait a minute, are you sure it ain't Tasmania and Elizabeth?
Yeah, it's Taz in Elizabeth, New Jersey. No, it's Elizabeth in Tasmania, apparently.
Where is Tasmania?
It's over by Australia.
That's why they have the devil there.
That's right.
Because it's down under.
Aloha, Brian. Aloha, Jim.
Aloha.
Ever since his debut, there has been a fairly strong push behind Wardlow, with comments from Jim Ross and others proclaiming him to be a future world champion. Additionally, I've heard Jim echo these praises to some degree on the show. My question is, what exactly do Jim and others see in Wardlow in the foreseeable future? As has been said, he's green, his promos are poor, his finisher is convoluted and lifeless, and I, for the likes of me, can't see him getting over with a modern audience. I would like to know your thoughts on this. Is Wardlow a future world champion or a discount Will Hobbs?
Oh, my God. Well, after just taking the piss completely out of him there, now, here's the thing. Wardlow had a lot of things going for him at the start. They've been diminished over time on this television program, but it's not like it's too late. It's not a lost cause, for God's sake. But I'll explain a couple of things. Wardlow was not seen on anybody else's television program prior to AEW, correct?
That is correct. I believe the first time we saw him was that vignette in the parking lot, and then they rebranded him as MJF's bodyguard.
Yes, but point being, he's a brand new, fresh face, but he looks like somebody. Your task as a booker or a promoter is to take this guy that nobody has a preconceived notion of. Is he good? Is he bad? Is he the shits? Is he great? We don't know. He looks wonderful standing there, and we've never seen him before, so we've got no idea. And all you do is give people positive impressions of that person, showing the strengths, not the weaknesses, putting him in positions where he can come out looking better instead of exposing his greenness or inexperience at this point. And that's why the standard old classic formula has been quick, decisive wins over guys smaller so that the size difference is accentuated even more. If he's not a strong promo, if he's not confident on the microphone, you put him in a group or you put him with a manager, which they did. You let him speak intermittently until he gets the hang of it. What you don't do is what they have done is make him and Jake Hager basically on a level playing field, on even footing, because Jake Hager is the exact opposite of Wardlow. Jake Hager was on WWE programming for years at a time where it was seen by more people and was more popular than this program AEW is now. I think that the facts bear that out. But besides that, he's had more experience, and he, as we've talked about, is for positive or negative, good or bad, about as where he's going to be, about as good as in the ring as he's going to get, both in the way he thinks and the way he works and the way he moves, and also his promos, because he's had experience now. You can always get better, but it's not like at this point suddenly a light bulb is going to go on in Jake Hager's mind, and he's going to be twice the talent he is now. What they've done with Wardlow is they've traded wins back and forth with this guy. They've exposed him to bad, sloppy fighting. They've made them the big cleanup guy for each group, which didn't do Wardlow any good whatsoever. As MJF's bodyguard, with just MJF speaking for him, MJF could have, and we've talked about how they dropped the ball on MJF anyway. He wrestles once every 4 months. But with him speaking for Wardlow, Wardlow getting a word in once in a while, Wardlow being the enforcer, the muscle for a top heel that has a lot of heat, and then could eventually have switched as they started to tease, which was ridiculous after they'd only been together for a few weeks, and then this latest brilliant idea to put all these top guys in 2 fucking factions and tie them all up in that took over. But then you could have switched Wardlow on MJF, and you could have had... The point is, he should have been with someone, but not muddied in a group with a lack of focus on him for so long, and then every once in a while he gets to do something, and then he trades wins with a guy that's... I can't say he wouldn't be there if he hadn't had a WWF run, Jake Hager, but he probably wouldn't be there if they'd have fucking paid more attention to what they were getting, because bleh. So I saw a guy with great size, a guy with great athletic ability, a guy that you can see if you have an experienced eye, understands how to pick people up and put them down safely and do some moves. I'm not saying he's the chess master and he can psychologically think of everything to do in a professional wrestling match, but he's very good at doing moves, at working fairly safely from what I can tell. Did I mention he looks like $1 million and he's got all the size and he's young and nobody had a preconceived notion until he got on this TV? Then the way they booked him gave people a notion that he is what he is. He's interchangeable, member of the roster now. But he could have been held out as more special, and it could have been a slow build where he wrestled every so often and won in a dominant fashion, was always seen with MJF, and was always figured into a top deal where nobody, for the first year at least, matched him physically, maybe a tease of something, but he was never put on his ass man-to-man. And then you start, in the second year, playing with it a little bit. So when everybody said that Wardlow, they see a future world champion, they see a ton of potential, they see a top guy, that's guys like Jim Ross, it's guys like myself, it's guys like other people that have been around for a while and would have known, well, here's what me or somebody else's work that I admired would have done with this guy. That's what we see. The raw football player coming out of high school with a great college coach behind him. We see a talented singer with a producer like a Rick Rubin behind him. We see a talented but inexperienced actor with Quentin Tarantino, regardless of what he thinks about Bruce Lee, behind that guy, coaching him and teaching him and bringing out the best in him and minimizing the weaknesses. When we talk about how this guy, remember I said Austin Theory. I don't even know where he's at anymore. Is he still stuck with Johnny Sameface as a stooge? Everybody was talking about this guy or that guy's the Will Ospreay or whatever is the greatest young wrestler in the world. Austin Theory, I could see if he spent a year in Mid-South or a year in Crockett Promotions or a year in Florida working under Eddie Graham, would be the best in-ring young performer in the business and hopefully get a really good lesson in thinking in psychology, because he had the facials and he had the little things and the mannerisms, and you could tell that it was just a natural thing that he was a bit better, more comfortable as an in-ring talent than a lot of guys with that level of experience. And you figure, okay, if he's this much better than he ought to be after a year, then how much better is he going to be after 3 or 4 years? A la The Rock or Kurt Angle, quick learners, naturals, take to it. We meaning me or anybody else who gives an opinion of so-and-so is going to be a great talent, that's been in the business that long, we're not talking about what they're doing right now. We're talking about what we see that they would be able to do if somebody took them and weeded out some of the fucking dreck. So that's why sometimes there's a disconnect between the fans are looking at what they're doing on TV and going, this fucking guy? And I'm looking at what the guy ought to be fucking doing if somebody with experience and the knowledge was helping shape that raw talent, what they could be doing. Does that make any sense?
It makes lots of sense. I'm sure they'll mess everything up with Wardlow, but Jim, with that, the drive-thru has closed.
Good day.
Nah, even that's screwed up. All right, listen. The Jim Cornette Experience debuts Saturday. Wherever you find your favorite podcast, we'll be back next week, right here on the Drive-Thru. Of course, you can access classic episodes of the Drive-Thru and the Experience at patreon.com/Cornette. For only $5 a month, you get access to the archives of the Drive-Thru and the Experience from 2013, the very beginning. Right now, we are uploading shows from 2017. Another big batch of shows goes up later this week. Patreon.com/Cornette. Subscribe to the official Jim Cornette YouTube channel. 225,000 subscribers and growing each and every day. Be one of them.
Like a malignant tumor. It's continuing to grow.
Full episodes, clips of episodes, omnibus collections, and so much more with the Travis Heckel artwork that everyone loves. The official Jim Cornette.
I understand we have the fastest growing channel on YouTube. YouTuber. YouTuber.
All right. Well, where do we go from here? You can follow Jim on Twitter at the Jim Cornette. You can follow me on Twitter at Great Brian Last. You can hear me on the 605 Superpodcast at 605pod.com. Available wherever you find your favorite podcasts. Don't forget about Cornette's Collectibles at jimcornette.com. The Great American Cameo Bash is what? This Sunday, right?
This coming Sunday, July 11th, noon to 2 Eastern.
2 hours, go nuts! The Great American Cameo Bash, jimcornette.com. The Drive-Thru is brought to you by the Law Office of Stephen P. New, 888-692-8084. Get even with Stephen at newlawoffice.com. But until Saturday on The Experience, and next week right back here on the Drive-Thru, for Jim Cornette, I'm the Great Brian Last. Tally-ho!